Whenever you're ready.
Let's see, do we have it on?
Sean, what do I have to do? Push a button?
Top button on the left-hand side. That's what turn the-
Hey, Anthony,
Yes.
would you, do the pledge?
There we go.
There we go.
Design standards, that's gonna affect some cities if they.
Chad, how are you?
Good.
That was just before Candace started recording.
I didn't record yet. I didn't do the on-rail goat part.
Can't send that.
No,
No, she didn't.
it wasn't me, Chad. I only say nice things about you. Okay, we're good.
Okay, it is 5:30 PM. Want to bring this work session meeting and our city council meeting to order. Would like to do a roll call. Candace, would you do that?
Yes, Councilmember Nordfeld,
Here.
Councilmember Stevens,
Here.
Mayor Scott,
Here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Councilmember Perry,
Here.
and Councilmember Beal.
Thank you. We first of all have a presentation by Cat Power Systems, gas powered generating plant. And Shane, are you gonna do the presentation?
do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
good deal.
Yeah. Sir,
Go ahead and take it over.
okay. Well, thank you. Do I click through with this?
No.
No, that's our record. Don't click anything.
That's all right.
Okay, don't touch that.
And just, you want to make sure that's still ready.
Do we really want to get this guy involved?
It's okay.
Just let me know and
Okay.
I'll do it. For these 8.5 by 11 pages.
Yes.
Get it in. Page level. And we'll zoom in if needed, if
Okay.
council wants to see something closer. Is that okay?
Good with me.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mayor and council, thank you for this opportunity to be with you this evening. My name's Shane Miner. I'm with Wheeler Power Systems. So we're a division of Wheeler Machinery, who's the Caterpillar dealership. Many of you are probably aware of us, and we're all throughout the state. We cover the state and some of Nevada, some of Arizona, and some of Wyoming. But Cat dealers by nature are territorial, and so that is our territory. And one thing that sometimes people get a little confused on is that we are a Cat dealer. We're not Caterpillar. Very similar to like a Ford, the company, and then a Ford dealer. Very similar model. So we're the dealer for the state of Utah. What do we do? So one of the things that I think is important, we talked a little bit about this, is that Wheeler's been around for about 75 years now in the state of Utah. So, whether we're dealing with this type of generation that we're going to talk about, or hybrid energy, where we talk solar or battery or whatever it may be, this is a company who's here to stay. It's not a company that you end up dealing with and then they build a project for you and you never hear or see from them again. We're here to stay. Maybe just back up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just let me know.
Nope, you're good. We are a general contractor, which is a little bit rare for a Caterpillar dealership. We're actually a general contractor. And the reason that we've opted to do that is that when we build power plants, it gives us the leverage to build them the way they need to be built. A lot of times when you're working with a general contractor that doesn't necessarily specialize in something, he wants to build it the way he does, and we're trying to encourage them to do it the way it needs to be done. Sometimes there can be a tug of war there, and a lot of times a power plant will be built and it's not functional. So that's one of the reasons we do that. Second piece is we build power plants and we're the general contractor. We give you one throat to choke, right? You're not dealing with multiple entities here, right? If it's not working correctly, you're not pleased with it, you come to us, we're the ones that deal with it, we're the ones that fix it. It gives us some advantages financially. We're not passing and doing multiple margin stacking to a general contractor and then to an electrical contractor. And we're able to find some savings in some of the equipment that way. So we do power plants that run around the clock. We do power plants that do what we call market mitigation or peak shaving, when we target those really expensive pieces of power. We do standby generation. My colleague and counterpart, Tim Miner, sold a bunch of standby generators to you guys, so you may see them throughout the area. So we do that work too. That's good. Thank you on that one. So just real quickly, just wanted to show you, give you an example of projects that we do. And one thing I don't love about these is it's hard to reference the sides here. I wish well, you can kind of see there's an individual walking right here. You can just barely see them.
Yep.
So that gives you a feel for the size of the equipment. That upper right, that is UMPA Provo's plant. When Provo took down their coal-fired power plant, we built this power plant for them back in 2016. Down in the bottom left, this is Lehigh City Power. That was the first phase that we did back in 2017. And then just kind of the smaller ones over there, we've got Washington City, Santa Clara City, Hurricane City, Heber. And we built a power plant for Deseret Power down in St. George as well. And that's that bottom right one. So these were power plants that we did up through 2022. And we're actually finishing 3 power plants just this year for Hiram City, for Springville City, and for Nephi City.
How big is Hiram's?
It is 3 units, so it's about 7.5 megawatts.
And are they going to run it continuously, or are they just going to shave the tops off
Yeah,
their power costs?
the latter. Yep, they're for peak shaving, what we would call peak shaving. Now, to be honest, depending on what the market did, these plants could run around the clock. Most of them are air permitted with the state of Utah to run 8,760 hours a year. So if the municipality found that the market changed drastically and all of a sudden, hey, we need to run way more than we have been, the air permit is in place to allow them to do that. And so we'll work with Corey on that and make sure that however that, if you opt to do this and we end up working with the state, we'll make sure that air permit fits you very well and you have a lot of flexibility as far as how to run.
So we're looking at one generator, right?
Yep.
What's the size of Hiram? What's their population?
Well, so I know that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just trying to compare their peak to yours.
It says 10,500.
And they are,
Okay.
they opted to probably go with more generation than they actually needed. And that was just their own choice. They're probably a full engine heavy right now, but that unit is in place as they need it.
Mayor, I think, sorry, Shane.
Yeah.
I believe their load, Hiram's load is around 18 megawatts, if I recall. They've got that.
And we're at 9. I mean, our high.
So we're about halfway, in between what they have, so just in perspective, so, yeah.
And we can show you the analysis, how we found the size that you needed. We didn't just pull it out of the air. It's actually pretty scientific on the size that makes sense for you.
Shane, can I ask an ignorant question?
Yeah.
Definitely ignorant, but I think some of those are indoor and some are outdoor, and the outdoor ones appear to have, I'll just call them smokestacks, sorry, but
Yeah.
are we talking about the one for Ephraim, if we went that way, would be smaller, certainly than Provo or Lehigh, but indoor, outdoor, I think I missed that is.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question, Anthony, and Corey can vouch for this. We're looking to put this inside the existing power facility. Yep. So you would have stacks. The stacks would probably they would look very similar to probably this, although they'd look similar to this probably.
But we have space inside, but they're not inside the gate, but inside the
Side of the
building
building
itself.
itself.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And there is a picture, if we go to the next one, that may give you a slightly better feel for what it would kind of look like. This was the first phase of Springville City Power in their existing power plant. So they had They have 4 large natural gas gen sets in there. And then they had these 3 concrete pads down here that had some older EMD diesels on them. Those EMD diesels went out and then they purchased these natural gas units, which this is an identical unit to what we would put in for you guys. Yep. And that's inside, that was a retrofit. So the work would be similar. It might look similar. And we've talked about kind of finishing the walls and just, making it very appealing inside and, it being a very nice facility when it's finished. So. Okay. I know you guys are short on time, so I want to keep moving and answer your questions as they come up. These are radiators. They're on the outside. So just like your car, just many times bigger, and there's your stacks, but that's what it looks like on the outside of Springville.
Older fans.
Yeah.
And let's go just down to the one that says the need. What drives generation for an entity? There are many things, but sometimes the distribution could be getting to capacity, and the way that we can lower that load on that is to do some generation behind the meter. We can defer infrastructure growth by doing generation. We can support strategic parts of the city during a transmission outage. We will work very closely with Corey and his group to see what that looked like. That's a very catastrophic type situation, but that ability is there. Obviously, peak shaving and market mitigation, they kind of fall into that same category. We're watching what the market's doing, and we're generating at a fixed price that is really quite low as compared to what some of that market pricing could end up looking like.
And this market has been volatile the last 2 years.
Yeah.
It's killed us on 2 occasions.
Yeah, and we got a good look at that. We saw that for sure. We can generate, if we can get $3 gas, we can generate for about $40 a megawatt hour. So
That's 4 cents.
4 cents. 4 cents a kilowatt hour. So, when a municipality goes out and they try to buy power projects that fit their load, they can only buy these in blocks. It's hard to project exactly what you're going to need. And so they do the best they can. They work with UAMPS. UAMPS does a fantastic job, and we go out and buy these projects to cover us. The challenge is we don't have anything that's flexible in that mix. But this type of generation brings some flexibility to shaping what that load looks like, following that load a little bit better. So that's another one of the things that drives the need for this type of asset. You have a local asset that's in your neck of the woods that you have control over, that you can actually walk up to and get your hands on it. So it's like, to some degree, I know it sounds funny, but you own your power. You're not necessarily renting that power. Circuit support, if you've got a certain part of the city that may be going low on voltage because that load in that area is pretty high, this type of generation really bolsters that distribution and helps with that.
So let me stop you there. Let me ask Corey a question. A couple weeks ago, when we had that low voltage, could this plant have augmented it so that we wouldn't have to shut down our power?
Probably not,
Okay.
because I don't think there's a way that we could have fed that back into the system, the 46,000 volt system.
Okay.
To augment that. I just don't think that the generator's built for that.
Okay.
What you could do is, if Rocky Mountain Power had a situation on their line and we opened the disconnect between us and them, you can then support strategic areas with clean power. But when the infrastructure, or when the utility goes low on voltage and the generator is connected to it at that point in time, the generator only has enough inertia and power to help that to a certain degree. And then what happens is the generator goes high on amperage, higher than it's rated for. So I think there's some help that can be had there, but that is a little bit of a harder one.
Okay.
That would be a lot of work, obviously on our end to have switching procedures in place.
Right.
And whatnot to feed critical loads if we needed, whether it be let's say, city building, if the generator here didn't kick on, or some emergency services like, the fire station, or even, maybe Snow College needed power, they didn't have it, maybe we could feed that both away to the activity center or something like that, where it was a major emergency, we could utilize that. Is that right, Shane?
See, Corey, what I'm wondering about is 5 years ago, the Dorico that we have, the 5 power lines down, and then it blowing up our water pipe up the canyon.
Right.
Because the system shut off.
And when it came back on,
No, it wasn't when it came back on. The system shut off, the power built up, or the pressure built up and blew a hole in could we augment? Could we prevent something? I mean, it was a weird dynamic to begin with, but can we help with that or something?
Yeah, I feel like we could, like I said, there would be some work with Wheeler and on that end of it to try to mitigate that issue with, there would just have to be some, like I said, some switching procedures in place. That our crew would know, okay, we have to open this, but we can close this, but we can only do it at a certain amount of time. We can only
Right.
bring up 500 kW here and then get the generator up, and then it'll gradually get to that max kW.
One thing I just really do want to be clear in that regard is that its forte is not to do black starting and emergency. Its forte is to get your cost of power to run that for a megawatt hour as low as we can get it. But one of the side, productive things about the unit is if we had a very catastrophic situation, in my mind, that's really what it is. It's super catastrophic. Something's happened on Rocky Mountain. They're not going to restore it for days or weeks. Then this scenario begins. Because to Corey's point, I don't want to minimize the amount of effort that it would take to actually do this. It would be a lot of effort. So, but that capability is there. Yeah, so I think that's everything there. This helps to give a little bit of a feel for what your power and load profile looked like through a year. And it's probably easiest for me to kind of point at this a little bit. Can you see these little rows that are running like this? Those are days. Those are so there's every day across 3 years here. So there's 3 years here. So there's all of these slices are days. And then as you go this way, you've got the hours through the day. So if you look down here, we're in, I believe this is probably January, but you can see that the load, your load, and these colors represent the amount of load that is happening at that time of the year. So if you look in January, there's not a lot of load on the system. We call these the shoulder months, right? The load just isn't there. People are running gas heat rather than electric AC, right? I mean, those are kind of the two things that are pretty heavy drivers. But you can see that as we start warming up throughout the year, we kind of come into May and June, you can see that the load really starts ramping up from about noon up until, around 9-10 o'clock at night. So you can see that this load starts to ramp up, and this blue is typically very reasonably priced power. It's called base load power, and it can run, base load power used to be $30 power, but I think nowadays it's up 50, 75 even now, because all our coal plants got taken offline, and now the power to fill that gap is more expensive. But anyway, this blue is purple blue. I'm colorblind, but I think that's blue. So it kind of starts getting purplish, right?
as it gets
Okay.
towards the red, it
All right.
mixes together.
Okay, so this starts becoming what we call an intermediate cost of power, and it's just another tier of cost for power, and it could be anywhere from $75 to $100. When you start getting into the red and then we get into the white, we actually call this our snowy mountains graph, because these are your mountains and they're snowy. This is really expensive power. And to be honest, there are days here where, peak power can be $200, it can be $300. we're looking at being able to generate at $40 a megawatt hour. So you can find some serious savings through these periods of time. And we can also find that we have seen the market do stupid stuff, like go to 800 to $1,000 a megawatt hour. That can put utilities out of business. I mean, it really can if it goes on. That year that Texas froze up all of their gas compressors and their turbines, that got crazy. We saw some crazy power prices through there. So an asset like this can help that. All of the municipalities during that period were running heavy through that period, and they were even running their diesels. Diesels are about 10 times the cost of a natural gas generator. So that tells you how expensive that power was through that period. But anyway, this just kind of gives you a feel for what your load profile looks like and really what we're trying to accomplish. And that is to be able to take off this very expensive, unpredictable peak power. Does that help a little bit? Did I get there?
You done it right.
Okay.
If you were to look at 2022, September,
That
it
was
would be a Mount Everest compared to those other.
I agree with you, and we get to show you that here in a second. We can.
I don't want to look at it.
You can skip
He's
to
just
this.
starting to get over it.
Keep going. Keep going. Okay, here. So this is, again, what is it gonna cost to operate this generator per megawatt hour? And so here you have your pricing on this side, and then you have the cost of gas here. And so if you have $3 gas, and this actually just breaks it down better. If you have $3 gas, you're gonna be around $40 a megawatt hour to run that generator. And one of the things to really note there is that the maintenance for the unit is included in that price, and we call that a strike price. So when Corey decides to start a unit, we call that striking it, and he'll strike it at that strike price. So if we lock in $3 gas, it'll be about $40 a megawatt hour to run that unit.
Will cost about $10 for maintenance, repairs, miscellaneous, whatever.
Yep. It's scheduled maintenance. So if you guys have an operation and maintenance manual in the glove box of your vehicle, right? And you open it up and it tells you when you need to change your transmission oil, and it tells you when you need to do everything, right? So we grab that same manual from Caterpillar and we extract all those intervals, everything from an inspection up to a top end overhaul, up to a major overhaul. And we've extracted a number and we bake that number into this cost per megawatt hour. So we allocate about $10 to $12 in that strike price that Corey will take and just put into an account. And he'll be accruing this so that as those maintenance intervals hit, you're ready for them. So the beauty about this conversation is all the maintenance is in your strike price. That conversation is kind of done. Now, it doesn't account for unforeseen repairs, which we don't have any of those, right? So we don't, I'm kidding.
Catch no more.
That's right. Lloyd caught my drift there. But yes, it doesn't account for unforeseen repairs. But that's that strike price. So you can see if we had $5.50 gas, we're up in the $62 a megawatt hour range. And down on the bottom end, if we could get $2.50 gas. You can actually buy gas cheaper than $2.50 right now off of the instantaneous market. So a lot of munis will go out and purchase a gas contract and they'll hedge at a certain price because it makes them feel, better. They've locked in, they're not worried about the volatility of it, they know what it is. So some of them may do half of the gas that they need that way, and others may buy off the spot market, they call it. And you can buy gas a lot cheaper than $2.50 right now off the spot market. So you can imagine what that does to that strike price of that generator. Okay, let's go to the next one. We can skip this one and keep going. We'll go right to the meat and potatoes, okay, here. So this is just important because for us to understand what it costs to operate a megawatt hour, this is all the data that goes into that. And I think the only thing I really want to show here is, here's the rating of the unit here at your site. So we're about 2270 kilowatts here in Ephraim. These generator sets can operate down to half of their rating. So it could operate down to about 1100 kilowatts without it being detrimental to the unit. If we operate for extended periods down below that, we have to at some point in time come back and fully load that unit. It's kind of like with your car. Occasionally you want to stomp on the skinny pedal and clean everything out, right? It's kind of a similar situation here.
Floyd does it all the time.
Some
Some of us are worse than others.
Drive it like you stole
Like it's a rental, you know. So, yes. So I just want to note that there are times in your load profile where you didn't need the full 2200 kilowatts, right? You maybe only needed down to 1100. And if the requirement for the load historically was in that 1100 or higher range, we would have said, start that unit and run it, as we look historically at your load profile, load resource profile. So we can go to the next one. Sorry, this is hard to see.
Is there an area that you want to zoom in on?
If you want to just try to fill that screen up with it, just the best you can.
No?
It's yeah, that's better. So we're looking at what your load was in 2021, every hour of every day of the year. We're looking at what your load was. So this is August 1st, 2021. And I just took a snapshot. It's a massive spreadsheet. So I just did a snapshot here. So your load was just above 3 megawatts here. And these are your resources that you guys have to cover your load, right? So you've got Crisp, Hunter, you've got a power purchase, you've got wind, you've got Nebo. So you have all of these projects that you purchased in to try to cover that load, right? And so you had to pull, you were 39 kilowatts short on your scheduled resources. So you had to pull 39 kilowatts out of the unplanned pool, and that brought your total resource up to match your load for that hour. That makes sense. Okay, just wanted to kind of run through that, and if we can go to the next one. So to pull out of that, remember we said there was like 19 kilowatts coming out of that unplanned pool. 31, was it 31? 39. So the cost per megawatt hour for that power was 63. Well, we know we can generate for right at almost 40. So you said, well, why wouldn't we have run the unit during that period? Well, we didn't, because the load was so low that it wouldn't have made a lot of sense. Your load was way down and you'd only used about 1/10 of the capacity of that gen set at that time. So we would have told you at that period, we would have just said, you just buy out of the unplanned pool during that period, which is what you did. But then as we came later into the day, pricing was still up pretty good. We needed well over half the capacity of that unit, and our strike price was better. So we said you should have generated, or you would have generated at that point in time. And you would have saved $17.42 a megawatt hour at that period. And so we have done this analysis of every hour of every day of the year. And these are the times that we would have said, yes, you would have generated. And then there are other times that we would have said, yeah, just buy out of the unplanned pool. And then there are times that your resources were long, more power was provided than what you needed. So we wouldn't have said, We wouldn't have told you to buy and we wouldn't have told you to generate, we would have just said, you don't do either. And that's just the historical analysis that we've looked at there. So if we go to the next page, this is where we roll up all the savings that you would have seen. So for 2021, the savings that you would have found was about $400,000 in 2021. Had you had a generator and you run, we'd have saved around $400,000. In 2022, you were starting to push, you know, a pretty good number. And Mayor, that to your point, there was some pretty volatile days there. And then in 23, we're looking better. And we're in the $350,000 range savings there. And so what we do is we just I took an average of those 3 years. It's hard to know. You know, I could go back 20 years and try to figure out some sort of average, but we just took the last 3 years and we averaged what that savings would have been, which is this. And then we did an amortization exercise and applied that savings here. This is what we estimate a project would probably cost for Ephraim City. And applying that savings, it would be about just under a 12-year payoff for that.
That's really pretty short.
What is the longevity of these,
Great
of a
question.
plant like this?
Great question. And I'll just give you an example. Snowbird Ski Resort. Snowbird Ski Resort built a power plant. We built a power plant for them back in 1985. The generators had 300,000 hours on them by the time we retired it. If you convert that into miles on a vehicle, it's like about 2 million miles. We could still get parts for those generators at that point in time, and the core iron was still rock solid. So long story short is you're gonna want different technology before the engine ever wears itself out.
So you're saying wouldn't be unusual to go 30 years and it'd be okay, because you're talking about 38 years and.
Yeah, so if you think about it, CAT has their intervals, so they're gonna say at 20,000 hours, you need to replace the cylinder heads. Okay, we replace the cylinder heads. At 60,000 hours, we need to replace the cylinder heads and the turbocharger. But you're accruing for all that expense. It's already sitting in an account ready to pay for that. At 80,000 hours, it will be a complete overhaul of the old engine and it will be brand new as though it was when you bought it at that point in time. And so that cycle will just continue over time. So at 40 years, the technology there'll probably be something out there that will be better and be like, hey, maybe it's time to look at something different.
How long does, like the overhaul take? Is there any
Like a major overhaul?
Yeah.
Yeah, major overhaul is about 2 weeks. And we would work with you, probably do that in do you remember the shoulder months that we talked about? Do it during those months. And, yeah, a top end overhaul we can do in about a week. So yeah, your longest interval would be a 2-week deal, but that's at 80,000 hours. We're anticipating you running anywhere from 1,500 to 2,500 hours a year. So if you think about that,
That's a 30-year before a major.
so
We should stay the same.
you just gotta remember that we're just targeting that really expensive power, which isn't happening all the time. But I know we're out of time and I'm happy to answer any more questions or.
How hard is it, with the location that we've talked with you about, cost difference and practicality of putting a second unit in there?
Like right now, like doing it all up front.
Yeah.
It's definitely gonna be, so a lot of times we compare cost to the amount of KW that we've installed. So we call it cost per KW. That cost per KW is way better if we install 2 units. If you only install 1, that 1 unit is bearing the cost of any upgrades that we do inside the building. And so it's cost per KW is not as good. However, go ahead, Mayor.
No, I'm listening.
When we looked at the analysis, 2 units, the 1 unit would probably sit a lot and not get a lot of utilization right out of the gate. It would probably take several years before you guys would need to see some growth before you really started recognizing benefit of that second unit. I would love to sell you a
1,000
second.
homes in a full-size hospital.
You're starting to, things are starting to happen there for sure. If you look, can we go back back to here? Yep, this one's good. So for instance, in 2022, it looked like you needed about 3/4 of 1 unit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, and then I think up here, we were closer to needing 1 unit. Yeah, we were getting closer. And then in 2023, so it's bouncing around. We're getting close to fully maximizing 1 unit. So you're right. If you want to be ready for the future and you understand that you're taking some cost pain now,
So
you
what,
can do that.
I mean, the 1 unit is 5.1 million. What are we looking at a substantial cost break for 2 units to install and run and?
8 or 9 million.
So, no, probably not. Just to give you a background on the number, that number was for an enclosed unit coming out of the factory, fully ready to set on a pad. We believe that we're probably gonna be able to do this project in the building for less money, we think. Okay, we haven't looked at it, we haven't priced it up yet, but we
That's
think
fine,
we
it's
will.
being recorded, so.
Yeah. So, but you're not gonna have substantial cost savings, but what it's going to look better financially if you were to analyze it. If you were to say, we put in 5 megawatts and our cost per KW was X, it's gonna be a lot better cost per KW at 5 megawatts than it is at 2.5 megawatts.
So Corey, what I want you to do, I want you to look ahead. And we're gonna look at your recommendation. And if you're saying, good grief, we have an opportunity to do 2 for the cost of, 1.5, whatever it comes out to. Maybe I don't know. I'm just, we're constantly as a council looking toward the future, trying to plan, trying to game the future. And
But with this machinery, I'm sorry, is there potential for it to become obsolete? If we buy it now but don't really utilize it for
Question.
4 years. And I
For
don't.
4 years, will the technology be such that we would want to wait? And, well, that's what we have to look at. How much are we gonna save if we did 2? And compared to just waiting and then putting in another one.
Because we know we don't need to, but like Mayor's saying, we try with every project, our public works or other projects that we have right now to think of 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road. And 1 unit is not going to be sufficient 20 years down the road for us, probably not even 10 years down the road for us.
The beauty, I have 2 or 3 thoughts. The beauty of it is that we could install a unit for you, probably have most of the equipment we could, we could pick and choose what we do, right? We could do the concrete pad for the second unit. We could put the motor load control centers in. We could put the switch gear in. We could pick and choose what we did that made that second unit install fast, right? It could be maybe 10 months instead of 18 months. So that would give you some peace of mind. Obsolete, it's not going to be obsolete, but there will be new technology coming. We're on the cusp of having a unit that's going to be slightly more efficient. It'll probably be released in the next year or 2. That looks very similar. In fact, if you were to look at them, you probably wouldn't even notice a difference. The Caterpillar's working on it right now. They've got some units up at Heber that they're testing. When Caterpillar releases that unit for order, it won't make what you did now obsolete. It will just have better efficiency. So Caterpillar is going to support this equipment for years down the road. And this is This is cutting edge stuff. This is the best. This is right top tier efficiency type units that you can purchase, right?
So if you bought the second unit, you didn't use it for 4 years, if it's just sitting there, is it gonna be fine? Like other motors and stuff, it's not good just to sit and not be ran.
We would probably work with you to put them on an automatic cycle. To where
It's like
the controls just looked at how many hours were on the unit. And the control says, okay, this one's got 5 hours, this one has 0. We're gonna bring him up and match the hours.
Nice.
So it would be working unit.
Yeah.
Mm.
It would balance.
And Mayor, to your point, we could probably look into this, maybe our 2024 graph as well. I know we were a lot shorter this year than we was in 2023 as far as power bill. And maybe that's something we need to look at, Shane, and see if that second unit is feasible, you know, and because we were short quite a bit of power in July and August of this year. But is that payback gonna be where we want it to be, you know, if we have to?
That's a fantastic point. I do the same thing. Payback's important to me. The analysis shows you need X. And if we put more cost into that, your payback goes up. So everyone just has to be aware that that's what's gonna happen.
Boy, I think when I first was on the council in 2013, I think our biggest kilowatt, megawatt, was 6.3.
6, yeah.
Yeah,
6.3.
and now we're at 9.
We're pushing 10.
Yeah, 10.
But yeah, to do new generation, whether we put a factory enclosed unit in a different substation or a different location, you know, we can do that pretty quickly. We can do that in 15, 18 months. So, you know, we can always plan for that future generation. But yeah, not to take away from what Mayor asked.
Shane, how does that affect their permitting if they redo everything now?
Yeah.
Bigger unit.
Yeah, so air permitting is one thing that we would want to try to figure into what we want to do in the future. It would be good to get the air permit in place for what future generation you think you might need. Because it's very hard to alter as you guys know, emissions become more stringent with time. So you do something now, and then you go back to the state 2 years later and say, hey, we want to do something different. Well, what they do is they open your air permit back up, and now you become
Under the new standards.
the new standard. So it's a little, now I will say the state of Utah has been fantastic to work with on emissions. If you're working federally with the EPA, completely different story, very difficult. But the state of Utah has been fantastic.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, when we were talking about running the first one, the guy said that with the two, wouldn't we have to work with them too to get, they said we had enough to run one. I don't know, we'd have to check into that too, I guess, because I'm not sure if they said would have enough to run 2 units.
Oh, on the gas.
On the gas.
That is a good question. Dominion was a little bit skittish about that. They scare easy, Enbridge. They kind of scare easy when it comes to gas supply and these big chunks of gas consumers. So they kind of told us it would be hard for them to tell us right now because your gas infrastructure is going to change so much by the time. Well, if we did 2 now, we could go back to them and we could say, hey, we're looking at doing 2 now. Can you support it? We could always have that conversation. Yep. And I'm happy to report again at another time, you know, as we collect data and
Or I'm wondering, the hospital, that's the unanswerable
They
here.
use a lot of.
What are their needs gonna be? And,
Yeah, and what's that load gonna look like, and, you know, that's.
well, not only electricity, but gas.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Shane.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate you coming.
Appreciate your time.
We appreciate your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, do you have any questions about the agenda or the warrant register?
I have 2 minor ones. John,
on the Warren Register, there's a check there to Eric Christensen. Is that for access across his ground? For the water?
It's the, right away, yeah.
It's just an access fee.
It's they put the right away on that property to the water line.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the current water line project, that was budgeted as part of the water line project for right-of-way access.
Okay.
And that was the agreement. The discussion was to cover the cost of what impact fees would be for two water lines as they sit today, rather than have an open-ended, you get two connections at some uncertain date in the future. So this pays it all off today, we're free and clear, and then when if ever they decide to develop, they would be obligated to come in under current standards at the time.
And one last, one. The fee to the ambulance association, is that a once a year thing? That's all.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Just a couple, the diving real estate services, what is that? Appraisals?
That's the land appraisals that you authorized, the council authorized me to do.
Yeah.
Potential sales.
And then, there's two good ones, the art center, the 75,000 donation, I think that's awesome, then the ambulance, 10,000.
Yeah, so both of those are one-time annual donations that we've got budgeted for this year.
They're good ones, right?
A good one.
Are they good ones?
Depends on how you look at it.
They're good ones.
Anything can be debated.
I was looking at that backwards from what I was trying to do. Sorry about it.
No problem, but yeah, that's bizarre.
If I don't learn, I don't ask questions. Better ask. I was looking at that just backwards.
You're good. Any other questions, council members? Okay, thank you, Jonathan. We'd now like to move into our business portion of our meeting. Call that to order, and we have a scout here. What is your name? Jason who?
Jace Tenney.
This is Jace Tenney. Jace, would you be interested in giving us our Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
Yep.
Would you lead us in our pledge?
Sure, I'll try to.
You
Okay,
just
and
do
then-
it from right there. if you
And then
want.
afterwards, Dennis Nordfeld will give us an opening prayer.
There's the flag right there.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jace. You earned some kind of badge doing that tonight. I don't know what it is. Check with your scoutmaster. Check with Gary. He'll figure something out. Yes.
Our Heavenly Father, we're grateful for our many blessings to be able to live in this valley, in this land. We're grateful for our freedoms. We're grateful for those who have fought and suffered, provided this legacy for us. We ask that thy spirit will be with us during this council meeting, that we will be led and directed by thee. We're grateful for the residents of our city, and we ask thee to bless them. And we say these things in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Candace, do you have any public comment? Okay. Moving on to now, possible action items under presentations. One, Ephraim City Proclamation 2024, Russell M. Nelson Day. This is a proclamation that I felt strongly about, and it reads the following. A proclamation by the mayor of the city of Ephraim in recognition of Russell M. Nelson's 100th birthday and proclaiming Russell M. Nelson Day. Whereas President Russell Marion Nelson was born on September 9th, 1924 to Marion C. and Edna Anderson Nelson in Salt Lake City, Utah. Whereas President Nelson is the 17th president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sustained and set apart on January 14th, 2018 and holds the distinction of being the oldest president in the history of the church, whereas President Nelson has deep familial ties to Ephraim City. His grandparents lived across from the Pioneer Park and are buried here. And he frequently visited Ephraim as a child, spending time with family and embracing the spirit of our community. Whereas President Nelson has honored Ephraim in various ways, including speaking at our cherished Scandinavian days and playing a role in the historic dedication of the Ephraim, Utah Temple site, a site that stands as a beacon of faith and heritage for the community. Whereas all 8 of President Nelson's great-grandparents converted to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and England before immigrating to Utah and making their way to Ephraim between 1855 and 1863. President Nelson has marveled at the odds, noting the mathematical probability of 8 converts coming from 4 countries in Northern Europe, all coming to live in Ephraim, is remote indeed. Whereas President Nelson fondly recalls Ephraim for its role in his family's story, as it holds the birthplace of his mother, whose home stood where Snow College now resides, and Manti, where his father lived, not far from the Manti, Utah Temple. Whereas President Nelson graduated as a valedictorian from East High School in Salt Lake City, earned his BA and MD degrees from the University of Utah, and furthered his medical expertise at the University of Minnesota, where he obtained his PhD. Whereas President Nelson has served honorably in the United States Armed Forces, including time with the United States Army Medical Corps during the Korean War, and has gone on to become a globally respected surgeon, performing Utah's first open heart surgery at age 32 and making pioneer contributions in cardiovascular medicine. Whereas President Nelson has continually built bridges of peace, calling on each of us to open our hearts to those whose lives differ from our own, reminding us that we are all children of a loving God. Whereas President Nelson, in recognition of his efforts in fostering peace, understanding, and love, was awarded the Gandhi King Mandela Peace Prize in 2023 from Morehouse College. Whereas on the occasion of his 100th birthday, we in Ephraim City honor this remarkable life, his unwavering dedication to service, his heartfelt connection to our city, and his profound impact on our community and the world. Now, therefore, I, John Scott, Mayor of Ephraim City, do hereby declare September 9th, 2024 as President Russell M. Nelson Day in Ephraim City, Utah, and invite all citizens to join in celebrating his century of faith, love, and service. And that was issued on Monday, the 9th of September. A second proclamation. Many of you know that I have been involved with the foundation of Why We Love America. And part of that foundation's goal is to highlight the Constitution and the love of America. And so this was a proclamation that we decided to do in connection with that. There's a series of things that they've given to the cities that are just general ideas of what we can do. You'll notice that our flags are on display still after Labor Day, and that is purposeful. And that's because we're celebrating September as Constitution Month. So this proclamation reads the following. Proclamation by the Mayor of the City of Ephraim in recognition of American Founders and Constitution Month. Whereas the United States Constitution is a landmark document that established the foundation of our democratic republic, profoundly influencing the development of governments around the world. And whereas America's constitutional form of government is exceptional, embodying principles of liberty, justice, and equality that have transformed the course of history. And whereas it is an essential for all citizens, particularly the rising generation, to have a thorough understanding of our nation's history and form of government in order to uphold and perpetuate the freedoms and values of the Constitution safeguards. And whereas America was founded upon moral principles, including the sovereignty of the people and the belief that all individuals are created equal and endowed with inalienable rights by their creator. And whereas the genius of the Constitution lies in its structure of federalism, decentralizing power between the states and the federal government, thus promoting balance and protecting individual liberties. And whereas Utah Governor Spencer J. Cox, through his official declaration, has recognized the importance of honoring the founders of this great nation and their contributions to the establishment of our constitutional government by declaring September as American Founder and Constitution Month in Utah. And whereas civic, fraternal, religious organizations and educational institutions, both public and private, are encouraged by Governor Cox, declaring the Utah House Bill 179 to observe September as American Founders and Constitution Month to educate citizens and students on the principles of the United States Constitution, with special focus on Constitutional Day, September 17th. And whereas a nation under God, we acknowledge his guiding hand and our nation's history is expressed in our Pledge of Allegiance and national motto, "In God We Trust." And whereas Ephraim City's citizens demonstrate their patriotism and appreciation for the U.S. Constitution by flying the national flag, participating in patriotic activities, and educating themselves about the founding principles of our government. Now, therefore, I, John Scott, Mayor of Ephraim City, do hereby recognize Governor Spencer J. Cox's declaration and proclaim September 2024 as American Founders and Constitution Month in Ephraim City, and encourage all citizens, schools, and organizations to observe this month with programs, ceremonies, and activities that honor the United States Constitution and the founders of our nation. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of Ephraim City to be affixed this 18th day of September 2024.
You got
That was.
Take a drink.
Take a drink. All right. Thank you. Let's move on now to item number 3 under possible action items, funding presentation. Japheth McGee and Jenna Draper. We're ready for you.
Jenna is joining us via Zoom.
Okay. How are you, Japheth?
Oh, man, I am so good.
Good.
How are you guys
You're just
doing?
terrifical, huh?
I am, and I always come bearing gifts because otherwise people's eyes glaze over while I'm talking about law.
So this is Bridget.
This is,
What's this
if you go to the
from
League of
Zion?
Cities in Town,
That's
Bridget,
from
I knew it.
Zion.
I knew it.
that is,
Wait,
let's see if I get these for you and make you a little bit, more well-disposed to hearing more easy.
Well, where's mine?
I guess we have to share.
They're all, I want to between all of you. I'm so sorry. I was trying to evenly disperse them.
It's okay.
Can I just double check that? Jenna, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
I am not hearing you, so I need to make sure that my audio array is.
Yes.
Right again, Jenna.
Chocolate covered
I
milk.
always hear.
How about that? Is that better?
Oh, that's better.
Almost.
We can hear you. Somebody can hear you.
One more time.
Is that better?
Are our speakers on?
It's really good.
one I got one, I'm sure.
That's right.
They're all-
That's right.
Let's just say I won't make the huge mistake of bringing 4 boxes when I really.
Well, I can tell you what this does.
Okay. Jenna, let me know if you need
Your
to
own.
wave your hand or something, if you need to say something, and I'll
Okay.
make sure I hear you.
It wouldn't take any of Margie's. She guards that stuff.
I do.
When she goes to league meetings, if you touch her stuff,
That's right.
she will bite your hand.
And there's usually Pepsi in there
That's
too.
right.
So you gotta have
You're
complete
set.
package.
Margie have her help.
When we have your.
We're good. We're good. We are just fine.
One I've already featured everything.
Well, it's already licked it all.
Yeah, well, let's get moving then here, and I can kind of talk to you a little bit about two different things that talked with Sean and John about, and that's, nice and alliterative, so we can keep moving, or it rhymes, not alliterative. But so here to talk about bonding options, and first we'll talk about options for your public works facility. So I've been talking with city staff about this, and let's let's move forward one slide here, and I'm gonna talk about first what a municipal bond is. And I know I've been here talking to you guys before in the past, but it's been a while. I don't even know if all of you know me. But so basically, a municipal bond is a security instrument. And what you have with that is a dedicated revenue source that secures that, or in sometimes a piece of property that is collateral for that debt obligation. So if you were to go out, issue a bond, then you would have something that you would pledge towards repayment of that. In the case that you did not repay, then if you defaulted on that, then a judge could come in and take that. Basically like garnishing someone's wages. If it was sales taxes, and we'll talk about what the different options are for that, they would take the sales taxes. So let's move to the next slide here. So there are really 4 options that you could potentially utilize here to build public works buildings. And I'll explain what each of their security is and the ways that you utilize them and funds that can be used to repay them. So the first one is an unlimited tax general obligation bond. This creates a separate levy, property tax levy, that you can then levy on your residents to help repay the bond. So it gives you an all new revenue source, and it's the cheapest way to issue municipal bonds, typically the lowest rate, because what you're doing with an unlimited tax geo bond is saying every resource we have as a city, we are pledging to repay this debt. You'll raise taxes to whatever it needs to be, whatever it is. So, and because you have this unlimited levy that sizes to the size of the bond issue, investors really love geo bonds. They require elections. And where you need something now, you're past the timeline where actually you can even do a general obligation bond election this year. It wouldn't even be till next year before you could do an election. So it's not really an option at utility revenues. If you have utility that is the only thing paying for it, so like your electric, I actually have a bond from 1989 that I found in our offices from Ephraim City. Electric revenue bond. I was 1 year old.
Oh, what did we bond for?
I wasn't even born.
$3.3 million for electric revenue. And I actually haven't looked completely through it, but I'm going to leave this with you guys because I thought this was kind of a cool little piece of history that Zion's helped you guys with back in 1989. And so you can go out with your electric system and say, hey, we want to buy a generator, or we want to build this public works building. And if you have net operating revenues, so your operating revenues minus your operating expenditures, if it's sufficient to meet that debt service payment plus 25%, then investors are going to look at that and say, yeah, if you don't have that, if it's not contained into a single entity or a single fund, then it becomes a little bit more tricky to utilize utility revenues as a source of repayment. If you have multiple funds that are repaying this debt, then utility revenues become a little bit trickier. So if you have a more general purpose type of financing that you need to do, the last 2 options there are generally what we look at doing. First one, sales tax revenue bonds. And your sales tax revenues would then become the pledged revenue, but you can repay that from any source that you want. So if you have water utilizing the facility some, then you can make transfers into your general fund to pay this. It doesn't have to be sales tax paying the bond, but that is the security for the bond. These get really good rates. I've got a slide later that'll show you reasons why I think sales tax revenue bonds might be a really good option for the city. But we'll go on before then and talk about lease revenue bonds. This is a more flexible financing source. And the reason it's more flexible is because it's any available funds you have, you can use to pay it, similar to a sales tax revenue bond, but you're not pledging any specific revenue source. If you don't pay, the the collateral that investors have is just the building itself. And so there is some cities prefer this because it's not necessarily tying up a specific revenue source. Let's go to the next slide and I'll talk a little bit more about the pros and cons of sales tax versus lease revenue type bonds. Your sales tax bonds right now have really strong coverage on the different options that I've looked at, which will be on the next slide. You're going to have your sales tax revenues are 5 times to 3 times enough revenue to make the payment on the debt. That doesn't mean you're using that money for other things right now. So it doesn't mean that that's free money, but investors look at that and say, wow, if I ever had to come to Ephraim City and take that sales tax, there's plenty of sales tax for me to take in order to make the debt payments. And so they think that's a really good security. So you get a lower interest rate probably with a sales tax. And that's the gist of it. A sales tax bond is going to be lower rate, and it's also going to have lower costs to issue the bond. When you go with a lease revenue bond, because you're pledging property, you have to go through title and other things that create more costs with issuing the bonds. So lease revenue bonds, they don't have a specific revenue stream pledge, which is why they're good. Downside is higher cost of issuance and likely higher interest rates. A little bit more complicated accounting for John, but he's already dealing with that because this building is owned by Zions right now. We refinanced it for you back in 2020 and saved you a little bit of money, but Zions was the financer on that directly.
Mayor, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
And it's just to clarify what you were just saying. So City Hall, we used a lease revenue bond.
Yeah.
We also have a bond on the library, which I believe is a general obligation bond. Is that correct? Yeah. And John, do you know when the general obligation bond expires on the library? Or how many years we have left on both of them?
3 or 4 on the general obligation and 7 or 8 on the other
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
for the library.
Just letting you know that we've used a couple of these tools in the past.
Yeah, sales tax revenue bonds would be a little new for the city. The nice thing about sales tax revenue bonds is you can use them for anything, which means that if you have an emergency where you need to go out and do something, but you maybe don't have property to pledge for it, it's not necessarily property. Maybe you have to do, some emergency expansion on a road or something like that. This is an example. We did this with Payson City a few years back where they had a water line break. So they had water that we had to replace the water, but then they had to tear up the road and the process. And they're like, well, we're just going to tear the road out and redo it anyway in a couple of years. So we're going to do some sales tax revenue bonds. If you issue sales tax revenue bonds now for this project, it limits your ability to, in the future, use it for other things that you maybe can't use the lease revenue structure. So that's why sometimes it's nice to use the lease revenue bonds when you have a building, because then you free up your sales tax revenues for future projects that may not be able to use that structure. Let's move forward. So options analysis, I looked at different ways to issue your bonds and different time horizons, and really came up with tried to distill it down to 4 because I'm trying not to throw like a billion options at you because I know eyes glaze over, I'm boring. 20 years in the market, meaning we get an underwriter to sell your bonds to a lot of different investors. That's going to get you the lowest interest cost on the bonds. If we were to do a $5 million market underwriting, your payments would be probably around $363,000 a year for a $5 million bond. We go out and we amortize that over 30 years instead of 20 years. You're going to pay less every year, pay more over the 30 years because you have more interest expense on it. So that'd bring your payments down to about $300,000 a year. And then, but you have to take it out for 30 years. Typically, we like to line up the useful life of the building with the bond. So as long as the useful life of the building is more than 30 years, totally fine. We can go 20 or 30 years without any issues. 20-year direct placement. So as I mentioned that Zions did a refinancing on this building. You had originally had a USDA loan. Zions then purchased that and refinanced to get you lower payments every year. Those were both direct placements because you didn't use an underwriter. You went directly to the people providing you the financing. Zions, USDA, both of those were direct placements. Those can have really great features like prepayable anytime. If you go to the market, usually the market says we want 10 years where you can't prepay. We want to make sure we're locked into this investment for a while. Your direct purchasers will usually be a little bit more flexible. So they can do 3, 5, no prepayment period or lockout period. So that's one of the benefits of the direct placement where we have higher interest rates right now than we're expecting to have in the next few years. The direct placement has been an option a lot of people have utilized because then they can refinance in a couple of years and maybe save some money overall on the bonds. Comes with a higher interest rate out of the gate though. So you have to kind of weigh whether you think higher interest rate out of the gate where you guys are concerned about, you know, how much this is going to cost residents. If a little bit higher out of the gate for is worth how much you're going to have to raise rates on residents. So those are things that you kind of have to balance. We also ran 3 million for a direct placement just to give you, if it only costs 3 million, then payments would be about 227,000 a year. I'll stop. I know it's a lot that I've thrown at you really quickly.
It was a lot better than I was thinking.
Oh,
We might owe you back some of the chocolates.
You can keep them. You can keep them.
They're 5 years old. You can.
No way. We get shipments of those from Western Nut downtown very regularly.
Can I add some context to this? I know that the council and I have been very concerned about the cost of the Public Works building in concert with Councilmember Stevens, with John, Jeff Jensen. We've been working with Jones and DeMille to shrink the size and scope of that building. The latest estimate is returning that building to a rectangle with an office off of the front that would be basically the original proposal that Jeff gave us. That total cost for that, including infrastructure costs and everything, Jones and DeMille believes would be below the $5 million threshold. That's why I've asked Japheth to give you the $5 million. Does not include any land sales or cash that we have on hand or anything that we could put towards that. We would just want to look at the worst case scenario as we were scaling down that building.
How much cash do we have on hand to apply to that?
I'm going to ask John to answer that question.
We talking about just from the land sales that we've done? It's about 1.4 million. And that's not including any remediation that we might have to pull from that, so.
Right? Okay.
So one thing to kind of note is that direct placement option really becomes your best option the smaller the financing gets, because larger financings, if you go into the market with them, they require a bond rating, which you guys don't have, but that process, which is cumbersome to say the least, but it's also expensive. It costs money to get these ratings. And then you also have continuing disclosure requirements. So this right here is a disclosure document that you had to put out when you issued these bonds. We would have to create a document. They're a lot more involved than this now. This one is without exhibits, 42 pages. They're over 100 pages now, disclosures, and then you annually have to make those disclosures again. Not quite as involved as this, but that whole process becomes difficult and maybe not worth it if you are issuing a smaller financing. And so I think for our purposes, generally under 5 million, we don't recommend people go to the market to issue through an underwriting. Just find a direct purchaser, but that limits you because you can't generally with direct purchasers go beyond 20 years on a financing.
Japheth, on a 20-year and 30-year interest rate.
4%. I think it depends. So I think the rate that I ran on the market was about market 20-year was about 3.8%. The market 30-year was a little over 4. A direct placement is probably going to be closer to 4.2%. So it's a higher rate. But you do have fewer fees associated with the issuance. And so it balances out a little bit, not 100%, but
Could those interest rates change in a month?
yeah, they could. We had a 50 basis point cut from the Federal Reserve today.
Today, see, I didn't hear that. Okay.
And that was not 100. I mean, it was somewhat expected, but somewhat unexpected. I think we were for sure expected to get 25, and 50 was, I think, a little bit. The market had adjusted to that over the last week. It was basically pricing in about a 60% chance coming in today that was going to be the case. But if you had gone 3 weeks ago, the chance would have been like 10% that we had gotten a 50 basis point cut. So what that does is that changes our expectations for where rates might be in the future. If the Fed is more aggressive about their rate cutting, then we might see rates come down. Most of what the Fed is going to do is already been priced into rates. So rates aren't going to come down 50 basis points right now,
Right.
from 4% to 3.5%. But they might come down another 10 basis points from where we were expecting, because the market wasn't expecting them to be this aggressive. And maybe that means where they end up ultimately after the rate cutting cycle is lower than the market was expecting. So who knows? Who knows where we are in a month? Who knows where we are in 2 months? It's all hard to know.
Okay.
But that's why I think the direct placement is a good option. Something like 85% of municipal bonds are refinanced during their life cycle. And so thinking about the life cycle and refinancings in the context of what you're doing can be helpful for how you approach the financing overall. Next slide. Okay, just so you kind of know who I am, what I do. So, and other people who could potentially be involved. So rating agencies, trustee, they are other people who work on a municipal financing. Rating agencies may not, if you don't go to the market. Trustee, Zions is also your trustee, but it's a separate department of the bank, very different. And all they're doing is they're basically taking your money and giving it to the bondholders. That's what their function is. Making sure that the documents right here are followed, in the event that there's a dispute between you and bondholders. That's what the trustee's role is. Your purchaser, underwriter, they either buy the bonds for their portfolio if they're a purchaser, a direct purchaser, or they buy your bonds and then resell them at a slightly higher markup to investors and profit off of that. My job, and how I prefer to work with people historically is as a municipal advisor. So Zions did operate as a purchaser when we refinanced this, but 90% of the work we do is not actually providing the financing to the city. It's as an advisor, which I have a fiduciary duty to the city in that instance, where I give you advice that's in your best interest, regardless of what it means for me or for Zions Bank. And we prefer to act in that role because that provides, it provides you more comfort that you're working with somebody who is looking out for you and not just for them. And so that's what I do as a financial advisor, municipal advisor, and it's SEC regulated advice. So I have securities licenses that are boring and I have to take tests for them all the time. Let's keep moving. That's all that is. So Sean has this. So if you want to see any of this, we can show it. So bond counsel is one other person that'll be involved. And we need to get bond counsel involved. I've talked to 2 firms who are really, one is really good and one is just okay. And I've gotten quotes from them on potential costs for this. And typically that would be one of the things that I help with is procuring bond counsel to make sure that the structure, if you do a lease revenue bond, you've got all the things in place that need to be in place to make sure that that financing is legal, that investors can get tax exempt privileges from investing in your bonds, all those things. So that would be the next step, would you get bond counsel involved so that they can then draft resolutions authorizing the issuance of bonds and get everything moving for that, from that perspective, the legal side. Yeah, and this is, I try to simplify this. You choose your security, go through a resolution, election if you have time to do an election, and then you decide whether you're doing a direct placement, simpler, probably the best option right now, and a lot faster, honestly. And then go through, or you could go through the market and get an underwriter, and yeah, that reduces your costs a little bit. It increases the complexity of issuing the bonds and the ongoing compliance requirements. So I think that's it.
That is for this section.
Okay.
So this is what we've been talking about in the city's participation. If we needed to go bond for the public works building, that we are trying to shrink costs as much as we can and get it as simple as we can. This is kind of the 101 on how we would get financing if need be.
Yeah. Typically time frame 60 days from start to finish. So you go through, do a resolution. Resolution authorizes notice of bonds to be issued, which basically sets a 30-day period where people can contest and force a bond to a vote. And then after that period, nobody can contest it and you can issue bonds. You have 15 days for a public hearing that will be required. So we basically tell people 60 days is about the timeline you need to start your process and then to actually getting funds for whatever you're doing.
Can I digress just a moment? The reason this was put on as an action item is because we wanted to get this idea thought of, but then also bring up the plans of the public works building and get direction from the council. I mean, you hold the power of the purse and what we're going to do. So understanding what direction you want us to go as far as size and scale. So are you okay if I bring up the site plan and the what we've got currently? Just have to switch out.
Thank you, Jacob.
Yeah.
Is he done or?
No, Jacob's
Okay,
got it.
never mind.
I'll sit down right here while you talk about this because I don't think you need me for this. I'll
We
get
have
this
some
to-
chocolate to give him so he doesn't.
So let me pull this up to you. As you remember, there was talk about doing a T-shaped building. Jones DeMille came back to us with a way to do this without valleys and gutters and stuff. And this would be the same cost as the other one that I'm going to show you. This is the preferred model. So this gets you the main shop that Jeff has asked for, the sign shop and the storage building. And what we would do is put an expandable wall on the back end here so that we could expand to the back for future building if needed. This does give us the same 3,000 square foot office on the front. And this is what Jones DeMille has told me we can do for the 5 million. To put this in context of how it would look on the site. Yeah. And the parking here is still preliminary. Don't take that as gospel truth. We're just looking at this side. This is the vehicle storage building. That would be a future building that gets eliminated in this plan. This would not be built for the 5 million. The truck wash would not be built for the 5 million, but the commodities building would. And what that buys us is the building here with the parking, with the fencing that we would need, asphalt, or pardon me, concrete aprons on the building to handle the big trucks coming in and out, and the enough asphalt to be cleaned out coming in and out of there. Remember, this is future power yard, so this is not part of that discussion. So what we'd be looking at is the blue building, the parking, the loop, and then all infrastructure. There's also a potential for infrastructure cost savings as you've got a subdivision with housing that's coming in here that we could do some quick connections to sewer and power as it comes down through the Muddy Boys project and potentially not doing the full rundown of pre-built utilities down 400 South. But I think for prudence, we probably still want to do the whole thing down 400 South. And that is included in the bylaw.
Brian, what's the ETA of that Muddy Boys project?
The infrastructure is almost done.
Okay.
They're underground stuff, so they're, probably gonna be next year before the roads get paved.
Okay,
But their water and sewer is nearly complete down there.
okay, thank you.
So that's just the context of what my recommendation, and again, talking with Councilmember Stevens, with John and Jeff, we feel like this is the best option that we have for the money that we can potentially spend.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So we'll bring Japheth back up to talk about the other portion of this, and this is really why Jenna is with us here. As you know, a couple weeks ago, we had our initial review with the Utah Inland Port Authority. As part of that, they are able to provide, we've had these discussions about tax increment financing and using the inland port to be able to finance some things. What we wanted to get to is talking about public infrastructure districts and how utilizing the inland port and the tax increment can help the developer, in this case, Camino Verde, or any other developer that would want to come in and work as part of our inland port area to support those projects. They can take on the nature of the public infrastructure district and that the bonding power of the inland port and everything is resting upon the developer and not the city. So I'll turn it over to Japheth to explain that.
Okay. So one of the major ways that the inland port finances stuff is through public infrastructure districts. And I know we had conversations about public infrastructure districts. I'm sure you guys all remember exactly everything. I
Well,
said last- Okay.
This would be new to 3 of the council members.
Okay, all right, okay.
It's gonna take a lot more chocolate.
Okay, well, let's dive in then. So, either you or Inland Port can create public infrastructure districts. And it doesn't really change the fundamentals of the districts who creates them. The port has been a great partner with other communities around the state. And even if they are the one creating the entity, they work hand in hand with you to create these public infrastructure districts and make sure it looks like what you expect it to look like. I think Spanish Fork, Cedar City have gone through this process, and I know that our office has been involved on a lot of these, and that's kind of our experience. They've been really great to work with you as an entity. So what these are is they're separate legal entities from the city. They have taxing authority. Your involvement is basically at the time of creation. Once you've created them, they do become separate legal entities from you, from the port. And so the governance is now on that entity. But they can't finance infrastructure, or they can only finance the infrastructure. They can't pay for ongoing maintenance costs. So you do have some control from that aspect where you're going to be the one owning and maintaining the infrastructure long-term. You still have a lot of your agreements that you would have to have in place, development agreements, all of those things governing this infrastructure. But you need to understand that the construction aspect and the financing aspect then become the public infrastructure district who's doing that. And the taxing is, they're taxing as well. So partially. I'll clarify that in a second. So they issue debt to build this infrastructure, and then they assess a levy or an assessment on themselves to help pay back. The levy is limited to 15 mills, which the combined mill rate here is maybe 12, 13 between all taxing entities. Do you know, John?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's at I mean, around the state, you're usually 10 to 13 mills between school district, county, water conservancy district, which you guys aren't part of Central Utah anymore, but
County one though.
the San Pete County one.
Yeah.
So all of those entities, combined probably have about 10 to 13 mills. A PID could do another additional 15 mills on top of that. The money then from that goes back to paying off the debt associated with the infrastructure that they create. It's the only place it can go, doesn't go to the operations and maintenance of it. It just goes towards financing the infrastructure. So requires 100% of voters within the public infrastructure district or landowners approval. So, and that's why it's generally only used by developers, because they own 100% of the infrastructure within that area. And so they authorize the PID in that way. And basically what they're saying is, let us tax ourselves, and then we will use that tax revenue to pay back this infrastructure. Now, if there's residential involved in that, eventually those become your city residents who are taxed at that rate. And so that can be a complicating factor. They're not going to go to the PID board. They're not going to go to the county. They're going to come to the city. And Sean and John will get to have lots of fun conversations. You would set, or the inland port would set, maximum parameters on what you will allow them to do. Maximum mill levies, maximum indebtedness, the term of the bonds. They can go out up to 40 years or 30 years. But you may want to say, now we only want the term of the bonds to be X, Y, or Z because we think that's more fiscal. Just depends. You have to figure out what financially works for these and see if that works. And that's all part of the master agreement that you adopt before authorizing, or you adopt as part of the authorization for the public infrastructure district. Property tax, you can say, we only want 10 mills on this property. A lot of cities will do two things. They will say, we allow 5 mills for residential, 10 mills for commercial, industrial, whatever. Some cities just say, no, you know, whatever you need, if you can demonstrate that there's a need for it, we'll allow up to that amount. Just really depends on the city. But statutorily, it can't go above 15. When the debt is gone, the PID dissolves. It's no longer an entity because the only thing it's there for is to finance the debt. And this is kind of how the financing works, is basically you say, okay, we've got a valuation. That valuation will increase by X. It will generate that property tax revenue. So you size bond payments to that. You wouldn't need to get too much into that. It would be something that we would work on with the inland port, with your staff, with the development team, to figure out what is the ideal way to structure these bonds that makes sense with the valuation that they have coming online, property taxes. Next slide. Again, ownership, you're going to be owning this, so you need to be considering what the infrastructure itself will cost you to maintain and operate over the life of it. That's just something your staff's going to do anyway, but usually this becomes more of a question when you're talking about the tax increment financing in conjunction with PID. So PID financings are separate from tax increment financings. PID's financings are a separate mill levy up to 15. Tax increment says we get the valuation increase, that will increase property taxes in this area. And it then says we will capture some of that revenue to either pay the infrastructure costs or provide incentives to the development team. And UIPA can capture mandatory 75%, meaning the county and the school district don't get a say on it. If you don't have conversations with them, that can make them very mad. And I know Jake, he's a nice guy, but him and Ralph might get a little upset if there's no conversation about those kinds of things. But the conversation can be, you know, here's why we
But-
think.
but
Yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
interject you, but
Yes,
But they, before they could, if they were one of the partners, the whole pit or the whole thing was out the window.
yeah,
But they cannot stop this.
yeah.
They don't have the ability to stop this like they did the last thought that we had about this.
So not tax increment. They never had a say over PIDs, but tax increment.
That's what I mean.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the past you would have to do agreements with them that said, this is our participation rate. We'll only participate up to X, or we won't participate at all. We don't want to participate. And so the benefit to those looking to do TIF now is UIPA can come in and they don't have to get those agreements in place. Their statute allows them to just capture that 75%, up to 75%. Without basically the school district or the county saying, yeah, we agree. I think UIPA's preference is to make sure that everybody is on board, because if they don't have everybody on board, then they're probably worried the legislature will eventually take the.
Well, before the county was on board, but the school district wasn't on board. I
Yeah,
cannot see a scenario where they would buy into this.
yeah,
I mean, but you're saying we don't need their buy-in.
Yeah.
To go move forward with this.
no.
That's what you're saying.
No, you don't need it for TIF. The UIPA, their statute basically says every entity has to participate with their tax revenue.
Okay.
So that's why UIPA has become a very heavily utilized method throughout the state, because it's requiring participation, and it's helping these TIF projects move forward a little bit easier. So next slide. Debt issued is not your debt, really important. So the debt issued is sold to very specific investors who know that they're getting into a speculative type of transaction. They are what are called 144A type investors. They can't sell them in small blocks. It has to be large blocks. So I'm not going to go out and buy a $500,000 block of PID bonds. It'll be somebody big, like big BlackRock or one of these big investment groups, blocks of these. And so they are able to do their own analysis and say, yeah, we're good with buying these because we can do credit analysis on stuff like this. Just a couple examples. Viridian Farms in Salem sold some PID bonds recently, 6%-ish. So that's what you're looking at for interest rates on these bonds. That may sound like it's high, and it is higher than, you know, the 4% we talked about for your bonds. But it is advantageous for the development team for a number of reasons. It's usually cheaper than they can get financing, or it takes the capital off of their back, and so they don't have to raise as much money. A lot of different reasons why it can be advantageous for a developer to get these PID financings in place. And we work with you to kind of basically put together governing documents. You can set tighter restrictions than the statutory limits. And that whole process is a process that we would go through with you or with UIPA, because we're the advisors to UIPA. We would help with that process if needed. I think that's the last slide.
Yes.
Any questions, council members?
Oh, no.
Lloyd knows more.
Here, Lloyd, more chocolate.
Let's keep it quiet. I know it's a lot, but you can do PIDs in conjunction with TIF financing. So the two things married together. You don't have to go up to the 75 mils or the 75% of property tax differential. There's a lot of things that come in with this, and it's complicated, but it is a method for helping out with infrastructure that needs to happen in the short term.
So is this open I mean, you're talking about Ephraim City, okay? Is this type of financing also open to private developers?
So yes, so what happened, this is yes and no. Sort of. What happens is.
Yes, no,
I'm sorry. They're weird financings because the board of the PID is the development team. So, but they've then become a governmental entity. You'll have over time a method for replacing that board that is the development team. They will over time be replaced by residents if there's a residential aspect. There's not, if it's all just commercial, then the PID board would still be the development team. 5-10 years from now. So this is not, the PID debt isn't your debt. That's the most important part about it is it's not your debt. It's the debt of the PID, which will likely be controlled at least at the outset by the development team. And you want it that way because if the development team, if you're on the board of the PID, then that starts to look like to the IRS like it's your debt, like it's a sub-entity of you. And so you don't want to be on that board because you don't want to be on the hook for that debt when it comes, if, heaven forbid, 5 years from now, there's a problem with the financing and investors come calling for whatever revenue sources they can.
Mayor Jenna would like to
Yes.
chime in if that's okay.
Yeah,
hi, Jenna.
hi. That's just what I was gonna kind of reiterate. By having the PID set up and then having them issue the bonds, the interest rate is higher, like Japheth mentioned, because the bond investors are taking on more risk just in case the development slows. So if you were to do a bond based on developments that are coming and then something happens and the development doesn't progress as quickly as we projected it would or at all or whatever, the PID is who is on hook for that. And ultimately there's just no money to give the bond investors. So that's why when they do get their return, it's a higher rate of return because they're taking the risk that if this development doesn't happen, there's no sales tax to fall back on. There's no city funds to fall back on. There's no UIPA funds to fall back on. It's entirely at the risk of the PID.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Any questions, council members?
So what she's saying is, if we go through this and then the developer doesn't develop as fast, the city doesn't have any obligation to pay that off.
Does not.
I mean, that's a quick scenario.
Jenna, am I right in that?
Yes,
Yes.
that's how it works.
Because you were going,
I just wanted to find it clear.
yeah, it's the one advantage, you pay higher interest. But it's the one advantage is that the city, correct me if I'm wrong, the city will then not be held liable.
Yeah. Because it's not your debt. It's not your debt. It's the debt of a separate governmental entity that doesn't share your financials. They levy taxes separately from you. It's the PID.
Which is the inland port authority.
Well, it won't be the inland port. It would be separate from the inland
Right.
port even. So they are a completely separate governmental entity from.
Japheth?
Yes.
Would it be safe to characterize this as a temporary special service district?
Yeah, think of it like a special service district, completely separate governmental entity. They can't do any of the maintenance type of stuff that a special service district does, but they are like a special service district, separate from even the entity that created them. So county will create a special service district separate from the county. For the most part.
And it's their, like the water line and sewer line, it's theirs.
No, it becomes yours.
It becomes yours.
Yeah,
Okay.
it is yours. And so the lines themselves, and that's why the maintenance costs are on you.
Okay,
Is the maintenance costs for the lines, and operational costs of those lines are on the city. So that's why when you go through and talk about the revenue sharing, if you're gonna do any tax increment from this, you don't want to give away everything if you're not gonna be able to operate if you give that revenue away. Does that make sense? So if you're giving away 75% of the property tax revenue that you would have gotten in that area, then, but you can't operate it now because you don't have that revenue, then it's probably something that you should look at and say, what's more feasible for us as a city operation?
So we'll be able to run under our rules and regulations.
Yeah. And you still get to dictate in the development agreement what the infrastructure looks like. You know, it has to meet your specifications. It's not gonna meet the specifications of the developer or the PID board. If you've already authorized it at this point, then that's a moot point, but they still have to come in and have these agreements in place with you to say, yes, this is what our infrastructure will look like. You have to approve it because you're gonna own it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Japheth.
Simple, right?
Gives us
Oh,
some things to
yeah.
think about.
Thank
Thank you
you
very
for
much.
your time.
Thanks, Jenna.
And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I have, my contact information is on that presentation that Sean has. And I answer my phone most of the time. I answer emails really well, but, yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay,
I'm gonna take off and go home if that's all right.
please do.
If you don't have any more questions.
We'd take off and go home if we could.
All right, see ya.
Thanks. Thanks, Japheth. Moving on now to consent items. Number 1, Ephraim City Resolution 24-12, Library Board Bylaws. Michael Thompson.
Good evening. The chair of the library board recently sat down and in reviewing potential applicants to fill her position, the library board felt they wanted to increase the board from 5 members to 7 to allow allow them to better work, have a quorum more easily. And so they just wanted to, they have prepared some changes to the bylaws and just need your approval on those. The first is under Article 3, just changing the board from 5 to 7. And then under Article 7, adding verbiage in there to allow the board to elect a vice chairperson to sit in. The previous bylaws said the secretary would fill in for the chairperson if the chairperson was unavailable, and they wanted to create a vice chairperson. And then just updating that the quorum would be 4 members instead of 3, since it is a larger board. And then just clarifying city council rep and myself's roles as ex officio, that we don't have voting powers on the board. We're just there to
Give advice, it's fine.
yeah. And then also at the bottom, they wanted to clarify under Article 9, Part E, that when it comes to staffing, they helped create the policy for staffing in conjunction or in consultation with HR, city HR and myself, and then that they may act as a screening committee for applicants, and that they will, a member of the board will sit on any hiring committee we have. That way the board can have an idea of who the applicants are and have a say in who is being hired. And so those are the proposed changes. Any questions regarding those?
Like item G, it says like all patrons. See, and my mind just stopped, to like all, but anyway. Under Article 3, board composition and term of appointment, it says the board shall consist of 7 members appointed by the Ephraim City Mayor. Could we change that appointed by the council member over the library board? Anthony, I'm looking.
That would be me.
Mayor, all of our boards are appointed by the mayor with the advice and consent of the city council.
We always
So-
vote on it.
And we vote on them. So, I mean, that would be you delegating an authority that you
Okay.
have as
Okay.
mayor.
Okay.
So
I accept.
Okay. Any other questions, council members? Looking for a motion?
Yeah.
Hey, let me get the verbiage right. I motion that we adopt Ephraim City Resolution 24-12 Library Board bylaws.
Motion made by Councilmember Beal,
Second.
second by Councilmember Anderson, all in favor?
Yes.
It's unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 2, FY 2024 collection charge-offs. John? You have the updated one we did.
We do have it.
Yeah, so these are write-offs that we'll just go through every year. We've got some utility accounts on here as well as some AR invoices, so the upper section, the utilities, this is significantly lower than it's been in the past years, and these are all just really old, as you can see the dates from there. Uncollectible, past the statute of limitations and some bankruptcy and things like that, so. Any questions on that top section with utilities? And then the 3 down below, I'll just go through those real quick. So the Peter Lamar is, that was from September 2020. That was a light pole replacement from an accident. We've made several attempts at contacting him. I've been told that there's a possibility that that was paid through with an insurance company. I could not find that payment. Still may be in there somewhere, but I couldn't find it. Yeah, so we've made attempts to contact the insurance companies and have made no progress on that.
So did the insurance company say that they had paid it?
We weren't even able to contact anybody that knew anything about it.
Okay.
We have tried contacting the insurance company. I've tried contacting them. We've tried several times throughout the last few years to try and get some information on this.
No progress.
Team management one there. There's some power work that was done on the trailer park. I don't know very much on that. Sounds like we put in more pedestals for trailers, and I've heard multiple things. At the time, the city manager had a verbal agreement that the city would cover that. I don't have anything to verify that other than just kind of hearsay, so that's where that was at. And then
What year was that, do we
So
know?
that was December 2020. And then this last one, Francis Javier Madrid, was an animal clinic fee for a dog that was spayed or neutered, I'm not sure. That was in January 2023. At the time, he abandoned the animal and never made payment on that, so I think it was adopted out to somebody. I don't know all the details on that, but so that one's also unlikely that we collect on that.
So I want to go back and maybe pick your brain about kingdom management again.
Okay.
That's a large write-off.
Right.
And Sean and I have talked about this a little bit. And I'm sure we could probably call Sean Kerr to see if there was if he remembers an agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, it predates Sean?
Yeah.
Because 2020, Sean
Grant,
would be
you
city
said?
manager.
Well, and I don't know exact dates on that. That's the AR invoice date, so it could be prior to that even.
See, Sean became city manager
That's when
in,
that's when the work was done and billed, but the previous discussions go back further into.
so was that Brent Hansen? Could we, before we just do that, could we call Brent Hansen
I'm happy to do that for you.
and then also Sean Kerr?
I have done that.
Oh, you've done it.
I've called Brant, he doesn't remember the details, it was too long ago. It was a
Okay.
verbal conversation that he had, there, wasn't sure if he got anything in writing as far as his emails. I've gone back and looked for anything that I could find in emails for those that I have access to. I haven't been able to find, I don't have access to all of Brant's old emails and all of his old files. But for the things that I do have access to, I haven't found anything in writing that covers that.
Have you talked with Sean Kerr about this also?
Not with Sean, because the original verbal agreement was made with Brant.
Oh, it was with Brant, that we know that. Okay. And Brant doesn't remember it. And this is a business in our community.
So we do have some email communication. I've gone back probably 4 years to when this invoice was first done. There was some agreements between Howard and Brand was involved with that, and Kingdom Management as well, right? We provided the conduit, we provided the power, things like that. He installed it. As near as I can tell going back, there's a genuine, the best I can say is a misunderstanding. If we say we're gonna provide the power and the conduit and you put it in, Colby understood this as saying, well, you're gonna pay for it. We understood it as, yeah, we'll source it and bring it to the site. You're still gonna help us pay for it. The invoice that we paid was a portion of the total work that was done. Colby did a bunch of work and he paid for a bunch of work on his own.
Right.
So he did partner with this. This is not just 100% write-off, like this is a partnership. We've had multiple disagreements. We've had multiple emails. It's been raised multiple times over the years. Everything that I can find, Colby continues to assert, even now and in previous emails. This was, the city promised me we'd do this. Brant Hansen is the one who says, yeah, we will contribute, we'll do this, we'll help do this. And I think that's where Colby gets his take from it. And we on our side said, well, we've already helped you a bunch. We're not charging you all of it. We're charging you a portion of it. That's what we thought we agreed to. He thought we agreed to something different. We've now gone through, we're on our 3rd city manager now, and this is still unresolved. So that's why this has come up.
Candace, did you have something you wanted to add?
Oh, I was confusing it with another situation.
Oh, okay.
We did have lots of conversation with our legal counsel on this matter. This is a larger issue, not just about the payment of this, but this came to us or reared its head again because of an application to put a new trailer in there. And one of the issues that we had, we originally denied the application because of fire code and other issues. But in discussing with legal counsel, because of the situation where the city has put in a number of the pedestals and assisted with this, we may not be able to deny that application as we would prefer to, really. And so that led us to the bigger part about what is the benefit to the city of trying to collect this debt, and it just in the context of the state's push for attainable and affordable housing, and PR things and just all the other interests, we felt it was best to bring this forward for a write-off, just to be done with the situation and let us move forward.
One of the other factors that played into that was, when we first talked with Kingdom Management, the previous owner was a absentee landowner, went into the bank, got it back. We couldn't get anybody to talk to us for a long time. We had real issues at the trailer park. Kingdom Management, we had a big meeting with them, got Sunrise Engineering involved with the inspection. We had like a 30 or 40 page inspection report of all the violations in the trailer court. Almost every one of those has been resolved now. So he has put in substantial work. The power has been completely updated, the water's been updated, sewer's been updated. He just barely put a new road in there. He's not going as fast as we would hope. But he is putting significant effort into improving this trailer court. We don't deny that we agreed that we would partner with him, right? And we have partnered with him, and he's done a bunch of work, and we've done a bunch of work. This is something in the middle that I can't find anything in writing that says 100%, this is what we agreed to, this is what he agreed to. There's a whole bunch of verbal conversations, goes back to Brant, and Brant can't remember, and he has nothing in writing that I can get a hold of. As far as these are the clear terms of that agreement.
But we paid it.
We've installed it, it's done.
We
It's been
paid
done
it,
for a long
it's
time.
installed.
We just billed him for a portion of the work that we provided, a portion of the materials, because he did most of the labor. So this has been done and over with for a number of years now.
So, you know, it's not like there's an outstanding bill of $7,200 that needs to be paid. This is just what is owed to Ephraim City.
The edict in the power department.
Any other, go ahead.
Can I give you just my thoughts on it? Brian can verify. When I worked for Ephraim City,
Mhm.
this trailer park, we spent more time out there with sewer problems that the city never got reimbursed for. Several times we had to go in there because they would not come and deal with the problem. We'd have to take our machine in and deal with it. We did a lot for them. That was, I mean, I have a hard time with it because
That was the previous owner.
Mhm.
and boy, the city has bent over and did a lot for them, for the citizens, protect them in health, and it's hard for me to bite off that. We did a lot for that property. Maybe it was a previous owner, but I'm just giving some background on
Yeah.
that. It's been, the city is and I know the power department has worked with it a lot, the water department, the fire department. There's a fire hydrant that was put in just out of request from the fire department because there wasn't one there. It was put, I think it's
Probably
been
have to have that
changed.
fire there.
And
But-
since, sorry, Chad, and
No,
since,
that's fine. I have a hard time. I know it's a different property owner, but it's, man, when you've been out there all night long worrying about sewer you see kids playing in it because the city wasn't notified. It's just,
so since the Kingdom Management is owned it, have we had to go out there like that? Still?
Yes.
Sewer.
Still?
Yes and no. We
Yeah.
took a bunch of, he came in with a plan to replace the water, replace the power, replace the sewer, all of that stuff. While that was happening, we still had to deal with him and a number of issues. He's not very good at notifying his tenants sometimes. We had to deal with some of those issues. In the end, he completed those, and since he's completed them, we haven't had any issues. And so there's a little bit of some transition time while he was trying to update and convert and do all of that stuff. But since then, we've.
So he saved the city some time and money because of what he's done.
However, I
With,
think
with the help of the
Way
city.
better.
going forth, it needs to be very clear what's
Yeah.
his responsibility and what the city's responsibility is. And we will, you know, because obviously we haven't had it. It's been too much word of mouth.
So, hopefully, he's got all the major stuff fixed now.
Yeah.
And now it's just a matter of moving trailers in and out, dealing with little things. I think all the big stuff that we had direct involvement in prior, I think that's all been resolved now. As far as the big work, the big, things that are left.
Has the trench on the south end been covered up?
I don't know. I haven't confirmed that.
Because the last time I drove by there, it was uncovered.
Oh, he just barely paved the road going in
Right.
through there. He just had a bunch of gravel delivered so that they could park off in the fire lanes and finally get that done. I wish that would have happened the day after it was paved. It took him a couple of weeks to get the gravel thing there and going.
Well, it's been a hard one.
Yeah, it's been several years that this has been
Yeah.
going on.
Oh, we can't do anything about it.
All right, any other questions, council members? On this collection charge-offs? Looking for motion then?
I'll move that we approve the fiscal year 2024 collection charge-offs.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Nordfelt, second by Councilmember Stevens, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Moving on to item 3, ULCT list of interests review. Sean.
We will do our best to be quick on this. This was just a list that was passed out at the league meetings a couple of weeks ago. Just about different topics that the league is working on, and wanted to give the council plenty of information to know on what the league's working on, two, I can try to pull this up for you. To what the main issues might be at the legislature next year. And if you guys have any comments or questions about this, we can follow up with a future work session on different topics. But in the planning realm, they're looking at internal EDUs again, design standards that we can't force certain design standards as far as aesthetics. The station area plan doesn't apply to us, as we do not have a UTA rail in our jurisdiction. Water conservation, that is an element that we've been asked to add to our general plan by the end of next year. A big topic has been the standard road width of 32 feet. That is pavement. That's not right of way, just a standard pavement of 32 feet. There's a lot of developers that are asking for narrower down to 26. Fire code requires 24 or 26. And so there's give and take, especially if you only have a 26-foot road and somebody's parking on the side of that, it becomes very, very difficult to get a fire apparatus down that road. So a lot of the cities are in favor of not going below 32. Processes, the subdivision process, we are working with Hanson Planning Association or Associates, I forget what his name is now, but to get our subdivision ordinances done. There's a whole lot of stuff about building permits, building timelines. This applies to us, but it doesn't, because we don't control the building permits. We don't have the plan review for building permits within our city, but we are somewhat subject to this as part of our zoning permit review. And so we try to comply with this. But there's some cities that take, several weeks to do a plan review. Our plan reviews for our zoning permits are done in a couple of days. So we're well within the timeframe that are there. Talking about plan review fees, talking about changing fees. If you've got a developer that's building the same house on 30 lots, do we have to really charge a different fee for every house? If, maybe they move a closet or something, they're not doing anything substantial to the house plans. Do we need to charge separate fees for that because there's nothing structural that's changing?
So that really encourages a cookie cutter
It does.
type of development.
It does. Building inspections within 3 days, I believe. And again, we don't have a building inspector, so we're not subject to this, but this is a big deal at the legislature. Building inspection, follow-ups, the league's getting a ton of complaints, and the legislature is getting a ton of complaints from developers that say, well, this building inspector is doing it differently than this building inspector. So they're looking to create a mediation pool where you can have a panel of 3 building inspectors that can look at it, and that would be the final determination and such like that. So that's a thing. Private landscaping bonds, and allow bond for partial sidewalk completion. Those are the big things that the league is talking about. As far as the planning stuff go, I won't confirm with Brian, but I think we're pretty much on par with everything that the league and the state has suggested. We're already doing.
If they're pushing, we're already doing.
So this is just informational for you, and if you guys,
In the interim set, I caught the end of a conversation on internal ADUs in interim session today.
and everything with ADUs, of course, are accessory dwelling units. Everything with that is about increasing the housing stock and supply, specifically on the Wasatch Front, and allowing people to build apartments and dwelling units. In addition,
Inside.
we have the internal that are inside your single family home and an external that would be a separate apartment outside.
For the record, we allow internal ADUs in every zone in the city, every residential zone in the city. We did that about 10 years ago.
Okay, thank you. Moving on,
That's good.
please, Chad,
Quick question.
please.
On that, and I don't know how to ask, so I apologize, but on that meeting we had, that Zoom meeting the other day on Utah lease.
Oh, on the amendment D and the,
Yeah, Amendment D.
Okay.
I know it got canceled or not or whatever, they got,
The Supreme Court.
it's a long and winding road, Chad.
there's a lot of stuff to it.
Yeah.
You know, they were getting into, well, they might be calling you and wanting your opinion. Is there, I know it's kind of got shot down, I guess, so to speak.
Mhm.
But is there some place where you can get, look at the copy? I don't know what the pros. If it ever comes up again, I'd like to kind of know why they want it and
Yep.
why they want to change it.
Yeah, and it could come back. It's going back to the Utah Supreme Court, which is where this all started back in June. So, but the main point of the league's webinar was that we cannot use city resources to actively promote
Campaign.
or campaigning for or against any of the constitutional amendments that are on the ballot. So we can't use the phones, we can't use the computers, we can't use city email, we can't do anything like that. As more of a warning to you guys, you still have your First Amendment rights to use your personal as individuals, but we can't speak and say that the Ephraim City Council is for such and such amendment, right? So that's that. I am more than happy to get with you individually and give you the voter guide.
Well, I just, they were talking, I did see where it kind of got put back, but if anything ever comes up like that, I'd like more information on why they want to change it.
Actually, it's going to be on the ballot.
Yeah, it'll still be on the ballot.
Yeah.
They just, right now, they can't count the votes.
Right.
So,
I thought it was really good, but I'd like a little more information about what they were.
I am willing to tell you the entire sordid backstory of that one if you'd like,
All right.
offline, away from City Hall.
That's. fine.
there you go.
I understood all the other stuff, but. They said that people might call councilmen and you can't tell them which way to vote, but. I don't know enough about it to say one way or the other right now, other than. No comment, I guess. But, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Chad. Moving on to item 4, ratification of the September 4th, 2024 warrant register. Any questions with regard to that? It was previously approved.
I did it online.
Right. But we just need a ratification.
I make a motion that we ratify September 4th, 2024 warrant register that was previously approved.
Motion made by Councilmember Anderson, second by Councilmember Beal, all in favor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now moving on to item 5, approval of the September 16th, 2024 warrant register. Any questions with regard to that warrant register?
I just asked that question to see all you guys' looks on your faces. But no, I opened my mouth before I thought. I was thinking when we talked to the art center, they were saying that there was a certain dollar amount that they gave back to the city some way. I'm trying to think it.
No, they don't.
Wasn't there some work they did or I don't know.
They have done a lot of work on the building that they've received grants and stuff for.
Yeah, maybe that was it that I was thinking.
Yeah,
That's where I
additional
got it.
hospital.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to correct, I own my mouth before the year.
Maybe they will give us 75 grand, so.
I thought, I know there was some discussion there when she came in and talked, so trying to refresh what was said at the meeting. So I apologize for that.
Okay,
I move that we approve the September 16, 2024 warrant register. Second.
motion made by Councilmember Beal, second by Councilmember Stevens, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
It's unanimous. Moving on to item 6, approval of the August 20. Will you tear that out, Dennis?
Yeah, I've got it. Working on it right now.
Okay, August 21st, 2024, city council meeting minutes. Any questions regarding those minutes?
I'll make a motion, we approve the August 21st, 2024 city council meeting minutes.
Motion made by Councilmember Stevens, second by Councilmember Anderson, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
It is approved. Moving on now to item number 2, appointments and council reports. 3-year appointment to the library board of Kim Powell, Bonnie Taylor, Lacey Hall. Any questions with regard to those appointments?
I'm sorry, Bonnie Tanner.
Did I say Taylor?
No, I
Oh.
said Taylor.
Oh.
You did say Taylor.
Tanner.
Guess I read that
Bonnie has been one of our storytime
one.
volunteers for a few
Thank you,
years.
Michael. I'm glad you're here. Or Bonnie Taylor, whoever she is.
She may not show up for any meetings.
Oh, Bonnie Tanner. Any questions regarding that?
No.
Looking for a motion?
I motion, since it's, the board that I help with, that we appoint Kim Powell, Bonnie Tanner, and Lacey Hall on a 3-year appointment to the library board.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Beal, second by Councilmember Norfelt. All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll do council reports and we'll start with Dennis.
Had a very successful airport fly-in, over 1,600 attendees, 40 aircraft.
How was the concert or the music with the
Very
big
well.
band stuff?
Very well received. I left before that, but I've heard good reviews.
I was there.
Of the music, and the youth city council were great. They were there. The rec board helped out as well. Not the rec board, but the recreation
staff.
department. Amanda and Jordan.
They were flipping pancakes.
Yeah,
I did that last year with
yeah.
Candace.
So that's my other responsibility. We can talk about that a little bit. Any questions about the flying? Any other questions about the flying?
I think that is the most successful fly-in we've had
Hmm.
in the decade that we've been doing this.
That's what I heard, that there was a lot more people.
And I don't know, we'll have a board meeting tomorrow. Maybe we can discuss why that, and so that we can make sure we do more of that in the future, but.
Depends a lot on what they're competing with.
Ted Nickel had some good flyers and there was some good publicity out. So, yeah, it was very well organized and went well. Recreation board, soccer's finished. There was they've gotten good feedback of some changes that happened during the soccer league. They're still planning on coming with a group to talk about pickleball courts in Ephraim. And they've established some communication that some of them are doing with Snow College to do a partnership on some pickleball courts. So I would like, Sean, sometime, just me and you and Jordan and Amanda to talk about Scandinavian Festival.
Amanda made the same request.
I've got some ideas, some thoughts, and just want to look at some things, so.
Happy to do it.
Okay, thanks. That's it.
Thank you.
Chamber of Commerce met last week. Sean and I went up to it. It was a fun meeting. We learned a lot. It was about how to start a small business. It was good. They Lynn Warnick asked if we could find some space for her to put a desk to have for a place to meet and have all the paperwork for the Chamber of Commerce for the county here. We're gonna look at it and see what happens when the USDA moves out, see if we can't find a corner to put that in, because we want that here. That's a good
Yeah.
organization.
Mhm.
Fire department's going along well, keeping busy.
I'm in total favor of the chamber having a place here. I want them in Ephraim.
Okay.
Councilmember
Do you have anything?
Chapman.
Utility meeting. It was mostly on the power, new gas power plant, but they did want kind of an update on the power study, when that was gonna go into effect. And if we had decided on a percentage, I believe they were talking, we were discussing that, we decided to wait on until what, the first of the year or something to do on the rate study. And there was something, I think, about, Lloyd was saying something about 4% or something.
So the rate study was proposing a 3.25%.
Right. So we might can maybe get that information back to them. An update on when all that's gonna go into effect and what the rates are. If that's possible, I think we can probably do that, can't we?
Yes, sir.
And then there was also a little bit of talk about impact fees. To bring it up and maybe talk to you about, Kim, the Larson boy, he brought it up and they all agreed that, some of the impact fees that some of the people that have lived here all their lives that are on fixed six, the new people should be coming in and paying the more higher impact fees. And Sean said there was some legal stuff with that, but I think they would like to look into it and see if that's possible. It was just a request to look into it and see, did I present that right?
You did.
So, I said, maybe we can.
Quick question on that. Is that people who have lived here and buying a new house shouldn't have to pay as much as the new people moving in? Is that what I just heard?
Kinda,
May I check?
yes, go ahead.
I think the concept is they don't want existing residents paying for new infrastructure through rate increases that should be paid for via impact fees.
Exactly.
Okay, there's some legal problems with that.
Right.
Yes.
And he brought that up, so maybe we can look into it and get back with the legal problems
Yeah.
if there, it was just brought up and that's what they would like to do, but Sean did bring it up, I brought it up, that that's what they would like, and I agree with it, but I don't know the legal. I think we should look into it, find the legal, and if we can, we can, if we can't, we can do some of it. And just see where we can go with it, and get back. Other than that, cemetery board didn't meet, but I've talked with Jeff and Shane that we are gonna bring it up at the flags out along the that we put up on Memorial Day. Maybe a better solution on putting them up besides the clamps, if we could put something in that they were easier to set up so we could put them up more often. Moroni, some of the other towns have put something in the ground, they have caps on it, so all they do, take it off and slide it down and they're done.
Kind of like rebar.
Yeah, like a pipe that goes down and they've cemented it. What Moroni has is it's just PVC, but it's cemented in down the ground. It sticks up about that far, but the pipe goes way in the ground and they put a cap on it. The problem is them flags are starting, that fence is starting to lean quite a bit just because of the force. It hasn't been brought up with the cemetery board yet, but it's something we're gonna have to figure out something. But it'd be a lot quicker and a lot easier that we could do that. We could set them up for more it's almost a full day to put them up now and take them down. I mean, that's a lot of clamps.
Are we gonna set them up on Veterans Day?
I'm not sure. I'll have to bring that up.
I can't remember if we do usually to your
But
point.
if anybody's been out there, I don't know if Lloyd, have you been out there setting them up? It's quite a project to take them up, take them down.
At the cemetery?
Yeah.
It's a big job.
It's
But it'd be,
surprising to how
be
heavy
so
those
much
are.
easier just to take the cap, take them off and man, you could set them up for any occasion you wanted to. The only other thing I have is it was very, very good service for Jason. Jason did a lot for Ephraim City. He's a wonderful man and he'll be missed, but that, I don't know if you call it salute or honor to him at the same tribute.
I think it meant a lot to the family.
It meant a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people were, if you were out there, they were taking pictures, people that were just wondering what was going on, but it was very, very.
I had several texts from citizens that asked that very
And
question.
I think Jason would really like that. I mean,
All credit for that goes to Corey. That was his idea and execution on it.
I thought it was very well done.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Thank you.
One thing that I did miss, I did listen to most of the session today, and they talked about inland port. And they talked about 2 or 3 new locations, and they did mention it.
Oh, good.
So,
Mine's quick. Just library is unstoppable. They're great. You consider where they were 6 months ago, a year ago. And we're just in a great spot. So thanks to Sean and others whose leadership has gotten us there. Michael is.
It's all Michael.
He's just really, I think he feels supported. So yes, and new blood with employees and board members. It was a good problem to have such qualified applicants. And I think the right move to move this 7 from 5. There are a couple, not just one, that would be excellent chairs, and that's, again, a really good problem to have. So libraries is great. They operate kind of under the radar sometimes, but it's fun to be with them. Julie Arnoldson, her group, the Ephraim Youth City Council, it's also fun to be with. They are quite the lively group. We were here till 9:30 on Monday last week. Just over in the rec boardroom, and those kids need to sleep, but
no, that's when they come along.
yeah, they really were a lot. Jordan Howe, and did a little presentation at their request about kind of a day in the life of a city official, a city employee.
Oh, that's cute.
And they just asked him what kind of schooling, and he of course had them just, eating out of his hand. He did a really great job. They did ask, so this is more of a question. Bishop Storehouse, they are hoping to use it for Nightmare on Main. And it did get, and Sean and others know about this, but they did look at the engineering report. They have no intention of going anywhere but the main level, not downstairs, not upstairs, no stairs, and that's important. And they haven't used the stairs before. So it is structurally sound, according to the engineering report. They stated that the upstairs might have a limit of people in it. They just said we're not going to use it for the spook alley. We've checked all other options, but there isn't anything that will meet the needs to make a successful spook alley for Nightmare on Main Street. Can we get approval to use it? And so I've got
Well, there's a second location.
engineers,
There's
maybe
a
the
second
cemetery or
location.
something.
No, it's Lloyd's house.
Oh, yes, of course.
The larger.
Is that okay, Lloyd?
Yeah.
We're gonna use City Hall.
We can move it down to Main Street.
Mayor, can I add some context? to that?
Sure.
The larger conversation is Bev Thomas with the Lions Club. Lions Club also sponsors the Boy Scout troop locally. They would like to use the Bishop Storehouse as a meeting place on a regular basis. And they're the ones
In
that,
such bad shape.
they're the ones that sponsor the engineering study to determine if it was structurally sound. They are willing to do a lot of cleanup in it, to have that place. I just need some guidance on whether we want to use the storehouse in that way, knowing its current state. And I don't have issues with it. They're willing to do a lot of the work. The issue is, do we create a lease? Do we give it to them for free? Do we charge for it? Do we make it a community center where it's reserved and they just have to reserve it? But they are looking for places to store things and having a place to park their scout trailer and some of their stuff. And that raises some issues that we would need to talk about.
Maybe just a permanent haunted house.
Well, let's deal with this issue and then we'll deal with.
And I sent you the engineering report. I think you have it already, but it was done mid-July. Again, they're not trying to do anything crazy. They have used it before, so I think they see that as.
The Lions Club has met there before,
Yeah.
and I know the
City.
youth city council's been there before.
Yeah, they're not trying to do anything sneaky or crazy. I mean, I would recommend we offer our approval. Julie, it is going to be supervised. No kids are gonna, it's gross enough. No kids are gonna wanna like explore around. They're just, they're not going upstairs.
Does the bathroom work? Because when people come in there, they're gonna want to go into that restroom.
Oh, no, I don't think.
Okay,
There's no water.
off limits.
There's no
Okay.
water.
Yeah, again, we've done this before, so I would encourage us to kind of this one-off, I mean, maybe for next year or something, if they need to go directly to the Lions Club to ask if we determine that that's the course of action, but of course, we're just a month away from Nightmare on Main, but.
Council members, are you okay
I
with
have
that?
no problems with that. Let's use it. Let's use it.
Okay, let's let them do that. As far as this other issue,
Because she
maybe
did reach
take
out,
that up at a future city council meeting.
Happy to do that.
and I'm sorry, Mayor, but she is in contact with Bev, which is how she got the report, so.
Gotcha.
Bev
Bev's
is
okay with
aware, even though Bev doesn't own the building, but she did get the report, and so they are connected, and it would not be a slight or anything weird for the Lions Club if youth city council used it for that day.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
Sorry, that
let's
was
go
long.
ahead and do it.
Okay.
USDA is moving to Nordic Point. That is a huge plus for Ephraim City. We were under the understanding that they were gonna move to Manti, and we didn't want that. We don't want it. They're saying that they generate about $10 million worth of business at Ephraim City, just by having meetings here and lunches and all of that. And so we're very happy that they're moving to Nordic Point. Mayor and commissioner meeting, we finally made a second decision to hire a new administrator. And at the dump. And we're going to do a salary range of $60,000 to $75,000. That's without insurance. And so we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Right, somebody might not.
Yeah. February 1st, the USDA will vacate the upper floor of this building, and we need to sort of reimagine what that upper floor is going to be. We've talked about police moving up there. We've talked about housing the Chamber of Commerce there. We've talked about moving Brian's office up there. There are a lot of things going on, a lot of moving pieces.
Or next year's Spook Alley, a little safer.
And so,
Do all those things.
yeah, when I first came here, it could very well have been used as a spook alley up there. Remember, Brian? There was nothing like that. No offices, nothing. It wasn't finished.
I've still never been upstairs in this building.
Oh, you gotta go on.
You go up instead of down when you leave.
The old city building would have been a good.
Yeah, that would have been a great spook alley.
Flying radiators.
That's true.
Dad used to clean that when he was a teenager. That was one of his jobs.
Hey, Sean Lewis.
I wish I was quality shop here. Okay, Mayor, I sent you a text and an email. I don't know that we can really discuss this. UDOT has approached us about doing a grinder thing on the corner of Maverick, First North and Main Street. There's concerns about bubbling in the road and stuff. They want us to participate with other cities. They've hired somebody to come down. They're going to be here on Monday. It's going to cost us approximately $2,000. I've heard mixed feelings from our department heads on whether we should participate in this or not. This literally just came up this afternoon. So we can't put it on the decision, on the agenda for decision, but that's something that just came up. And so I'll be looking for some direction from the council on that.
And let me interject here. It's UDOT is saying, we'll do it for $2,000, or you can do it yourself and mobilize everything
Yes.
and come here, which is going to cost us probably $15,000-$20,000. And, wouldn't you say, Brian?
Yeah, so part of the reason they're coming is because we had a water leak, we repaired the road. We didn't really do the best job of the road repair. UDOT is getting multiple complaints weekly about that and other places. Because they're getting so many complaints, then their leadership said, work with the cities and get these fixed. So Ephraim City has a spot, other cities have spots. They've hired a grinder to come down and just grind it all smooth, so there's no more bumps in it. And because there's multiple cities that have the same issue, UDOT's willing to do most of the work and most of the coordination and all of the, the street closing and the flagging and all that stuff, if the cities will help pitch in a little bit. So they're pitching it to us as, we're gonna make you do this anyways, but if you work with us,
This is
it's
the
gonna cost you a
cheapest
lot less.
option.
And so my view on this, and they need an answer within the next day.
Hopefully, yeah.
And so my view is to, I mean, it's not an agenda item, but my view is to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this.
Okay.
What do you,
Yes.
Is it for the recent ones that are done, or, because we did it once before to their specs, we had a grinder come in and do all
This is
that.
Maverick, and we've had we've been in there a couple of times. And we've never really made UDOT happy, like every time we do it, they're grumping at us about something.
Well, yeah, I can see there's maybe some recent ones, but the one they did accept, because we did have to hire a grinder and do it all ourselves.
If they do it their way, then they better be happy they can't complain.
There you go.
Don't drive any tanks on these parades, 'cause that's what started the first one.
was it?
It went up and it turned right on that water line, and about a week later, there it goes.
Okay. We did have a sewer breakage at Badger Cove over the weekend, late Friday night. That was all on their property. As far as I know, everything's been worked on. They actually had two great big clogs in the east buildings, and the west building sewer wasn't even connected. It had been collapsed and wasn't even connected. And they literally had sewage coming up out of the ground on the east side. So just letting you know that happened. Police has been stepping up their enforcement in the city on crosswalks and speeding and all that. We've also asked them, and they put out a memo about signage on light poles and stuff. And we've just instructed all of our departments and the police that if we see a garage sale or yard sale sign on a city light pole, just take it down. And if we start to see repeat offenders, then we'll go through enforcement process. But for right now, if you see it, take it.
Down by Walmart in the cemetery, that one's always got 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
Well, the one by Ace Hardware.
Yeah.
I have seen your guys on Sunday and days that you normally don't see them out, sitting in different spots. And I've heard it from the community too. So.
We had one officer a couple weekends ago that initiated 54 stops with either warnings or citations.
Well, also the high school kids down by the movie theater that are hooking to the right towards RJ's and doing a U-turn illegally after 100 feet, not going into McDonald's. Yeah, those kids are scared. Did you know we could get busted for doing that? I have a couple high schools.
It's good. I'm glad they know that.
But yeah, they're not drivers, but I did say, hey, is your friend John doing that? You better not.
Yeah, I received an email from the assistant superintendent who got an email from one of his drivers making us aware of that. And so that has also been sent out. So in addition to our school zones, our officers are gonna be spending time by the movie theater.
Yeah, that particular one, just as a parent, I mean, that one's super dangerous that these kids are doing that. Of course, you know that, but yeah, let's crack down.
Okay.
That particular one is there's a big possibility for,
Looking at some economic development stuff, we finally have been onboarded with the Alpha Map. That's our cell phone looking at stuff and business recruitment software that you guys approved. We're looking to do in concert with the county and other cities, a countywide market study, things that we can look at to show what the city has, what we don't have, and what we can do for businesses that want to come in. Along with that, last week we were cold called by a program called Viewpoints with Dennis Quaid, looking to do a profile on Ephraim City. I reached out to the mayor and President McKiff at Snow College and kind of explained what it was. I could pull up a video and watch it with y'all, but I think it's too late and we don't want to do that. But I can send you a link and you can look at what they do. But for a small fee that we think we can get paid through Sanpete County Economic Development, they are going to come and do a 1-minute TV commercial type product and 2 3 to 5 minute documentary type products that we can then own the rights to promote the city and talk about the good things that we're here. And talking with the mayor, with economic development, with President McKiff, the feeling was that for the cost of video production stuff, this is a good bang for the buck. The commercial will have at least 400 airings across various cable networks and such. And then the 5-minute documentary gets aired, is given to PBS stations across the country. And they can opt to air that or not, but we think it would get some airtime, at least here in Utah. So we are going down that path. The inland port we mentioned they had their first meeting in September. The second meeting to create the zone here in Ephraim, in Sanpete County and Sevier County, will be the first Thursday in October in Richfield. Everybody's invited to go down to that. Let me know if you want to attend. That's where they actually create the project area, and we can talk about that more as it gets closer. Or no, actually we can't, because we won't. Well, yes, we will have a city council meeting before then. We've got 2 honorees this year in the Burgess Owens Hispanic Heritage Month awards that they do. Guadalupe Corona, who works in our community development department, and Antonio Jimenez were nominated by the city and were awarded those. And that there will be a award ceremony on September 30th at the state capitol. If you would like to attend, please get with Candace so we can RSVP to Burgess Owens. I think RSVP is due tomorrow. So if you'd like to attend, let us know.
what day did you say?
That will be Monday, September 30th at 6:30 p.m. in Salt Lake. And then we did have a car accident several months ago that destroyed one of our light poles. The insurance company denied our claim for it because that was an unscheduled item and would not meet our deductible of $100,000. And so we're just on our own to pay for that replacement.
Which light pole was it?
It was at 55 North Main, somewhere in there. And then finally, the last thing that I have that I want to show you, every 5 years, Civic Plus, our website provider, does a website refresh for us. And we've got a couple of exciting things that go on this. So this is our current website. As you know, we are obligated under state law to switch our domain to ephraim.gov, which if you type into your web browser now, will take you to our homepage here. But beginning the mid to end October, we will have our new website. This is the refresh design. Candace had a lot of hand in designing this and making things work and making it pretty for us. The benefit of the refresh design is that everything is compliant with ADA and current standards for internet sites. One of the things that we've done is we've added these 6 buttons to the top of our most commonly clicked on things. You can see the highlighting, so you know exactly what you're hovering over. And then we've added another 6 more down here. So the top 12 things that people ask us about and want to look at, we will have right on the first thing that you see. we are going to, we can update these pictures. We are hoping to update the police one with one of our new police cruisers that we've got. And then we've got our community spotlights. This is our old news stuff. And then the city calendar, where we've added both the calendar here and the text on dates, so you can see what's happening in the city. And then our social medias, this YouTube link will be updated with our city council YouTube videos. So the latest city council video would show up there for residents to be there. And then just the bottom of the page. So not a whole redesign. We're not moving much around. It's just updating some colors and things to make it more compliant. And with that, we will be switching to ephraim.gov officially at the end of October. We went with our IT staff today. In doing so, we will be switching all of our email domains.
I was gonna ask.
The email domains will be your first initial and last name at ephraim.gov.
No dot on the first part?
Nope,
Okay.
just first initial, last name at ephraim.gov.
Oh, that-
Any caps,
No,
all under.
all undercase, lowercase, you can do it however you want. Those changes will happen all at the same time that we go live with the new website. There will be a period of time that both emails will direct to your inbox. We will invite you to City Hall if you're getting emails on your existing device. If you need some assistance to get that done, our IT staff will help you on our transition day for that. So this has been a huge undertaking for Marlon and James. They are doing great things for us and moving all of our accounts, our Cassell and everything on the back end that we have to do to move to this new domain of ephraim.gov. It's been a very large undertaking that has been taking them months to do, and we'll see the fruits of that next month. So
So what's the date on that, or do you know?
I think we planned for October 18th.
October 18th, our IT staff will be in office most of the day helping everybody.
So
Can you send us something?
Sure. With that, one last update on IT. Our phishing emails that you guys get about once a month to test you on whether you're getting official emails or not. We have had really good response. Not very many people are falling for those. And the idea is that the more we test you on it, the more critical thinkers people are being and looking at the emails before they click on links and stuff. So just want to commend the city council and staff for taking a look at those. I don't get a preview of when they're sending them. They almost got me on one a couple months ago. But when all is said and done, we're doing a really good job with that. They told us today that when we switch over to ephraim.gov and everything is up and going, our IT stuff will be way more secure than Snow College's is. And that's a kudos to our IT staff, Marlon and James. So that's my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
I'd make a motion that we move into closed session pursuant to the provisions of the Utah State Code, sections 52-4-205, for the purpose of discussing the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
Motion made by Councilmember Stevens.
Second.
Second by